Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown podcast brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Wednesday. You guys know what that means for us here at Irish Breakdown. Today we're talking keys to victory for Notre Dame's nighttime matchup, 7:30 p.m. kickoff on NBC or Peacock Saturday night inside of Notre Dame Stadium against the Navy Midshipmen, a rivalry that, Brian, you and I spent a lot of time talking about yesterday and the meaningfulness of the rivalry and why they've vowed to play each other every year. You have a post up right now on the premium message boards at irishbreakdown.com, Bond, Forge, and Blood. That's a fantastic read. Make sure that you guys go check that out. Talks about the history of the Notre Dame Navy rivalry.
But thanks to Andrew McDonough for writing that. Very, very well done.
Absolutely.
Very well done.
It's one of my favorite reads that comes out every single year that Notre Dame plays Navy. Been reading it every year since it came out, so definitely.
It's timeless. That's why we keep reposting it. It's timeless. It doesn't need updated. It doesn't need edited because it doesn't change, because it's about the history and how that impacts the now.
100%. Now, there has been a lot of things that have gone on today, or really the last 24 hours. And as you guys know, the Notre Dame playoff rankings came out. The college football playoff rankings came out. Notre Dame is the 10th ranked team in the country. So, Ryan, today, before we dive into the Keys to Victory show, and by the way, folks, we will have a mailbag at the end of today's show. I saw Tommy Guns get some in there already. If you want your question or comment put aside, put MB for mailbag or a little mailbox emoji. We didn't have time to do a mailbag yesterday after the playoff show. So if you have any questions about the rankings or Notre Dame's spot in the rankings, or really just any mailbag questions in general, feel free to throw those in as the show goes on. But Brian, before we dive into keys to victory on offense and defense, figured now would be a good time, now that we know where Notre Dame is at and there's no speculation anymore of, hey, they could be here if this maybe happens. What does this team have to do moving forward?
Well, I'm sorry, Trev. I'm going to be petty first. Before we dive into that, I just want to have some fun talking about how much fun it is to be on this end of the day of the discussion, to see all the just the whiners. I mean, guys, including some guys that I usually rather like. Ari Wasserman's someone who I usually rather enjoy his takes, but he's just taken about 37,000 L's the last 24 hours when it comes to his argument. And I love how the data guys, the stats guys, are constantly just hammering him. So, like, he wrote an article basically saying Notre Dame's number 10 college football playoff ranking shows this committee is leaning more on feelings than data. And I'm just seeing all these data guys, the computer model guys, that are this one guy, Brad Powers. I don't know who Brad Powers is, but he does power ratings on CFB. He's got 80,000 followers, means he's twice as big as I am. He goes, LOL, a lot of the data would have Notre Dame ranked higher than 10th. And I've seen other people like saying that. Like, I'm like, you can't say something like, oh, the data says this, and then not be familiar with the data. You know, like, so if you're going to compare Notre Dame and Texas, and you got to say, okay, well, game control for Notre Dame is higher. Notre Dame's higher in all the computer models. Notre Dame has a better opponent record. I mean, you know, like, what exactly are you crying about right now? Like, and why did you think Texas was going to be a week ago? You thought Texas was done, and they had a win over Vanderbilt. And that all of a sudden means, like, they're in. Like, it is just hilarious to me watching all these people lose their minds. Even like Oklahoma fans, I'm like, you should be lucky you're 12th. You're too high. You know, don't be worrying about Notre Dame. You go ahead and get yourselves ready for Bama in a couple weeks. You don't need to worry about old Notre Dame. Michigan fans jumping in, which was hilarious. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you just better hope you get a good bowl game at this point in time. I have had some fun. You know, Trev, you know, I don't post as much on Twitter as I used to. I don't get in that as much as I used to on Twitter. But, bro, now I'm just like, okay. And then, like, I hate Notre Dame. I'm like, you guys are so triggered. I'm having so much fun watching these meltdowns. And Notre Dame's the only team they talk about, Trev, not Oregon being ninth despite having 0 good wins. You know, it's absolutely hilarious, man, to watch it.
You know, if only there were 2 other rankings that came out a few days before the college football playoff rankings that also had Notre Dame at 10th to maybe prepare some people for where Notre Dame might actually be at in the college football playoff rank. If only some people had that disclaimer, then maybe they wouldn't have been as shocked. Maybe.
It's still maybe.
At some point, people will start to understand that you have to look at rankings as a whole top 25 and not just look at it in a vacuum.
Right.
Really, for a lot of these people, you just kind of have to ask them questions. Oh, you think Notre Dame should be ranked below Miami? Okay, fair enough. So you think they should be 19th? No, I think Notre Dame could make a run in the playoffs. How are they going to make the playoffs at 19th? Okay, so you think that they should also be below Virginia? Well, not necessarily. Okay, but below Miami though. What about Louisville? Like, it's just you can't look at rankings like this in a vacuum. Miami are outraged at that, and it's like you're talking about a head-to-head win that was almost literally 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So
as I've said, I think Miami should be higher. I do. I think Miami at 18 is a little bit leaning too much on the recency of their struggles, and the committee has said they're not going to do that. It's about looking at the entire resume. There always is a bit of a where our team's trending conversation. I think that hurt Miami, but I think that hurt Miami more than it should have. Because why are you punishing Miami, who's 2-2 in their last 4 games, but you then jump Texas way up, who's 2-2 in their last 4 games, and needed overtime to beat a 5-4 Mississippi State team, and needed overtime to beat a really bad 3-5 Kentucky team. You know what I mean? So if you're going to give me the recency of their struggles, let's be honest about something. Texas is struggling more than Miami, in my opinion. It's just, like it's SEC versus ACC. So, I mean, I get Miami's got a beef to be higher. I just don't think they have a beef to be over Notre Dame, because the only thing that they have on Notre Dame is the head-to-head. There's no other metric that has Miami ahead of Notre Dame. And it's funny watching some of these teams kind of lose their minds, because other than Oklahoma, nobody else in this conversation, Oklahoma, Virginia, Texas, Louisville, has a better game control than Notre Dame. None of them are as high in the FPI. None of them are high in the FEI. None of them are as high in the Sagarin. None of them are high in the Massey Index. Like Louisville and Virginia's strength of schedule and strength of record is not great, or strength of schedule is not great. So it's just like, you guys need to understand the data. Like, some guy was losing his mind, like, I can't believe you're saying 5-4 NC State and 6-3 Boise State are good wins. And I said, I'm not saying that. That's what the committee looks at. You may not think it's a good win, but if you're going to cry, at least know what you're crying about. And when we've had beefs in the past with rankings, whether it be Notre Dame or somebody else's, I could always give you data based on their own criteria where it shows their inconsistency in that criteria. But it's like, well, NC State sucks. Like, okay, cool. They did beat the number 14 and number 17 teams in the country. So if we're going to say it's just about how many top 25 wins that you have, then why isn't NC State ranked? Well, that's because they did. All right, so what you're saying is the entire resume matters. Like, that's how you can always get people. You say, okay, if it's this, then what about ranking that team? Well, you can't put that team there because of insert reasons. Okay, so it's not just about that limited criteria that you're focusing on. It's about the whole resume, and that's what's hilarious.
Oh, sure. I think Miami could argue to be a couple of spots higher. I understand you look at the entirety of the season, but part of looking at the entirety of the season, in my opinion, is you look at how a team is trending. I think they have more beef with Oklahoma than Texas. Texas has won 4 straight games. Oklahoma's 2 in their last 4.
That's what I meant. I said Texas, but yes.
I knew what you meant, but I think they have more of a beef with Oklahoma, because you can start talking about comparable wins. I think Miami has better wins than what Oklahoma does. They've each won 2 of their last 4, and then you have to get into the discussion of, okay, well, who are those teams that you have beaten? And Miami has lost 2 of their last 3 games, with the lone win coming over a not very good football team in Stanford, 42-7. And outside of that, their misfortunes have been, I guess, unfortunate the last couple of weeks. But I'm with you. I think they could be higher. I think it goes back to some of the conversation that we had yesterday of, I don't know who you put in front of them. You don't put Louisville in front of them because of the very recent head-to-head. You
mean behind them?
Yeah.
Like, I'd have them probably over Georgia Tech. Like I'm more impressed with Miami's resume than Utah's, for example. That's 2 teams that I would have behind Miami. And you and I have talked about this. Yeah, Utah's got 2 really good losses, but who have they beat? And so like that's more of some of the beefs that I have, Trev. It's like you guys are picking the wrong fight. I would have Miami over Vanderbilt. That's just me. I haven't been impressed with Vanderbilt all year. I know Vanderbilt's got some some quality wins, I guess. But I don't think beating Missouri with, by a touchdown in a game where their starting quarterback got hurt in like the first quarter of the game really impressed me all that much. They got beat by Alabama by 16. They came back against Texas, but that game was not close for much of the game. And then what's the rest of their wins? They beat a bad LSU team at home by 7. They beat South Carolina, Georgia State, Utah State, Virginia Tech, and Charleston Southern. So that's another team, because there's nothing that Vanderbilt's done that's as good as what Miami did with their first win. So that's kind of where and also Vanderbilt's 2-2 in their last 4 games, same as Miami. And so that's kind of where I look at it is, hey, yeah, but Miami, Vanderbilt beat so-and-so ranked team recently. But again, it's not supposed to be about recency bias, right? That Miami still has a win over Notre Dame in the opener. So, but 15's probably as high as I would go. I would also have them ahead of Virginia. I know that Virginia has the head-to-head against Louisville, but again, it's the same argument that I use for Notre Dame versus Miami. It's not about the head-to-head. It's the overall resume, and Louisville has a much better overall resume than does Virginia, in my opinion. So there were some things I didn't like, but nothing where like we talked about, Trev, it's not like, oh my God, Miami's at 18. They should be at 6. They're at 18. I think I'd have them at 15.
Yeah, a lot of the complaints are marginal. It's like, yeah, we think that Miami could be above Virginia. That means that Miami's at 15th and Virginia's at 16th or 17th. It's not They should be 7th and Virginia should be 20th. Yeah, right. I thought
Louisville should be 13. I thought that, I'd probably have, I'd probably have Miami at 14. I'd probably go Utah at Vandy at 15, Utah at 16, or flip those two somewhere around there. I don't want to reward teams that haven't beat anybody. And for all the crying about, oh no, they haven't beat anybody. I'm like, well, they do have a ranked win, so. It's funny to watch. I just love watching all these people just lose their minds. It's hilarious. I didn't know how dumb Oklahoma fans were until today. I hadn't really paid a whole lot of attention to them, but man, those people are not bright. Not bright. One guy was like, well, we just beat Missouri. And I'm like, no, you didn't. I don't think Oklahoma's played Missouri, have they? So it was our best win's better than your best win. No, it isn't. Literally, Notre Dame's best win is not only ranked higher than your best win, they beat your best win by 18. And that's when the Michigan fans jumped in. Well, if we had Justice Haynes, okay, sure. USC had outgained Michigan something like a 240 something to 130 something. Before Michigan started their next series without Justice Haynes in that game.
USC was also playing with a walk-on running back.
Right, who went $130 in that game.
Yeah, they can't throw the football. It doesn't matter if they had Justice Haynes or not. Sorry. Yeah. We talked about how there's no way it could be worse than last year. That's a pretty low bar. Which it isn't. But again, Bryce Underwood's on pace for 9 touchdown passes this season? It's not really that electric. I'm sorry. You're not going to make it far in the playoffs, even if they did rank it higher. Hate to break it to you. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting conversation. Always fun. Always fun whenever
the thing about it is, what makes me laugh, Trevor, is just calm the heck down. Because if Oklahoma wins out, they will be ranked ahead of Notre Dame and should be ranked ahead of Notre Dame. If Texas wins out, they would have a much stronger case to be ranked ahead of Notre Dame. So just relax, take a deep breath, and let it play out. Like Louisville, let your season play out. If you win out, you're in anyway. You're going to be conference champs. Just chill. That's what's funny about it is you're worried about Notre Dame. I'd be if Notre Dame was getting ready to go play Bama in 2 weeks or Georgia in 2 weeks on the road, I'd be like, look, it's good to be 10th, but at the end of the day, guys, it doesn't really matter until we get to that game, which is exactly why we refuse to talk about the playoffs until after the USC game. So all this talk about after beating Arkansas and all this other kind of stuff really doesn't matter until you go play and beat USC. And, I'm glad. And then there's my favorite is the people getting mad about, it looks like the committee's putting a lot on eye test. Yeah. Like,
looks like the committee is putting a lot of emphasis on how good teams look.
I can't believe they're watching games and making analysis of how things go on the field. What's my favorite is the people who talk about how bad eye test is, who then cry about, so results on the field shouldn't matter. Well, I mean, that's kind of what they're looking at. They're watching the games and looking at the results on the field. So yeah, they kind of matter. So it's hilarious. They just like, no, we don't want them to actually evaluate games. We just want them to look at the piece of paper and say who won or who lost. It doesn't matter that Notre Dame doubled up. Like, I think I saw something like this. Notre Dame has won over Arkansas by twice as many points as Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Memphis, and who's the other ranked team that beat Arkansas combined. Notre Dame has doubled them up. You know, like, you have to look at that stuff. It's not just that they beat 2-7 Arkansas, but yes, how did they play against Arkansas relative to everyone else? There's metrics of how Notre Dame performed against Arkansas compared to how Ole Miss did, or how Memphis did, or how Texas A&M even did. And that's what's hilarious when you Tennessee, that's the other one. Thanks, Michael Lynch. That's the funny part. It's just like, you guys are crying, but what you're showing is you don't understand how the committee operates. And you look silly. And it's one thing for fans to feel that way. It's a more disappointing thing when I see it from someone like Ari Wasserman, who, as I mentioned, I tend to kind of like. I like listening to him and Andy Staples. They're about the only people that I ever really do listen to. If they have an interesting topic, I'll pop it on. But just to see him kind of lose it and then double down on a bad take with like more petty bad takes, like Texas should be ahead. And then he's like, oh yeah, they really impressed against Boston College last week. I'm like, bro, you do not want to go there. Because I could bring up Kentucky and Mississippi State that happened real recently, like 2 and 3 weeks ago. That's what frustrates me, is like, just tap sound arguments. That's what I love about doing shows here, Trev, is we talk ball. We try to make rational arguments. And when we said Notre Dame should be 10th, we had data to back that up. We had reasons to back that up of why we thought they should be 10th. So I just wish more people would do their homework and actually understand where they're at. Didn't Heather Dinich have Notre Dame 10?
That sounds right, yeah.
And as we've said to her, she's the person who's most clued in to the rankings. So it's just it's funny watching some of these people just completely show their you-know-whats and show that have no clue of how this process works, like, at all. And it's just, I enjoy watching people expose themselves. For having bad takes. Let me just make sure I'm clear on that. I like watching people expose themselves for having bad takes. Yeah.
It's a good save. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, Notre Dame does have minus 355 odds on FanDuel to make the playoffs this season, obviously helped out by their number 10 spot ranking. In the recent playoff rankings that came out, we're going to go live every single week on Tuesday to go after it. But Brian, that begs the question, now that we know where Notre Dame is at initially, what do they have to do?
Now it's about handling business, right? Like, that's the thing, is like, Trev, you've been saying it for 2 weeks, man. I just want to know. I just want to get it out there. I just want to know, where are they going to be ranked? And so now where you're ranked. You should have a sense of, okay, to a degree, our destiny is now back in our hands. As long as we can stay at least here, we're going to be in the college football playoff, most likely. So it's just about go out and do what you need to do. It's about, go out and win every game, but play to the level that you need to play. Because here's the reality of it. The committee has talked a lot about, watching Notre Dame play and how good they are. And I think they've brushed off the BC game. But if that becomes a pattern down the stretch, then you can no longer brush that off. And the big win over NC State, the big win over USC becomes a distant memory. So now that it's in front of you, now it's like, hey, fellas, all the goals we thought we had lost when we dropped our first 2 games are now back in front of us. So what do we need to do to get there? We need to play our best football against Navy. That's it. And then once that game is over, focus on beating Pitt. And then once that game is over, focus on, right? And so that's kind of where they're at, Trev, is they're in a situation where it's all behind you now. You don't have to worry about this ranking, this other thing, that. It's now about who are we going to be? What kind of football team do we want to be? What kind of product are we going to put on the field? What kind of, standard are we going to set for ourselves? And are we going to have the leadership from a coach level, but even more importantly, from a player level, to say that we're going to go out there and we're going to set a standard and we're going to play to it. We don't need Coach Freeman to tell us we didn't live up to that standard. I don't need Coach Denbrock or Coach Rudolph or Coach Brown or Coach Washington or Coach Bulla or Coach Mickens to tell me I'm not living up to that standard, because we should be holding ourselves accountable. That's what I hope that we see. It's like, guys, it's right in front of you. It's right in front of you. Go seize it, right? It's like, what's the scene from Miracle, right? Take it. It's right there. The moment's yours. Take it. And go be what you're capable of being. Because I think there was a post on the board. I didn't agree with the overall thought, but I think it was from Fish ND, but the comment he made was he's not happy with Notre Dame's floor right now, but the ceiling is extremely high. And I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think too much of that's being wrapped into, well, they didn't play super clean football in a 29-point victory over NC State, where I still think people are missing how impressive that win was. But the thing that most people agree on, that actually have watched Notre Dame, whether it be Notre Dame fans or national analysts, is when this team plays to its potential, they're as good as anybody. And now it's about going out and showing that week after week, and it starts now. It starts with Navy. And so that's who you are. Is what now? Go handle your business. What's in front of you. Go handle your business. And so we're going to kind of find out who this team is, Trev, because now that you're go handle your business mode, now there's a little bit more pressure on you now. So do you step up and thrive under that pressure or not? Last year's team just seemed to kind of thrive on that when they got back in the Cotswold playoff, and the same time of the year. They go out and it's playoff rankings come out, and Notre Dame's 10th. They're back in business, right? And then what do? They finished well. This team needs to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that Notre Dame's playoff destiny is now 98% back in their own hands. Like, they are now in control of their own destiny, barring, some of the scenarios we talked about yesterday, like Oklahoma wins out and Texas wins out and Louisville wins out and Miami wins out and Georgia Tech wins out. So like the odds of all of that happening are slim to almost none. Now you have to go out and prove that. Well, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in Keys to Victory, a little bit more minute points, but big picture, you have to go out and prove that Boston College was the outlier, that you're not going to fumble in the red zone and then miss 2 extra points and miss a field goal. Because yes, while we can all agree that Notre Dame's ceiling is exceptionally high, and when they play to their full potential, that there's not a team in the country that they can't beat. With that being said, you could argue that the closest they got to that was Arkansas, and that was a month ago. So they're going to have to really, really hammer down and start beating opponents the way that they should, because you don't want that discussion to go from Notre Dame is 10th because when they play to their potential, they could be unstoppable, to we have the same conversation at the end of November. It's like, yeah, if they reach their potential, they're unstoppable, but they have yet to do that yet. And it's like,
Yeah.
So
and I don't know that, like, to me, it's not so much about reaching your full potential, because I don't really care about that to the playoffs. It's about playing to a certain standard, right? And at the end of the day, did you meet that standard? And that's why I look at like the Purdue game. Okay. Did you play to your potential? No, you didn't. Did you go out there and have a dominant win? Yeah, you did. Did you play to your full potential against NC State? No, you didn't. Did you have a dominant win that it was going to look good in the eyes of the committee? Yeah, you did. And so at the end of the day, it's continue to progress. I care more about consistency than necessarily playing to their max potential. I want to save that for the postseason. Give me consistency, because if they're consistent, these next 4 games will be comfortable, impressive victories. Because if you're consistent, then you'll continue to improve and get to that point in time, Trev. Because and maybe we're saying the same thing, we're just using a different word, but it's about, like, be who you are capable of being. It doesn't mean everyone grades out at 100%, but hey, we're locked in, we're executing, we're avoiding the dumb mistakes. And if you do that, you go out there and you dominate, and you keep getting better and better and better. And of course, like I said, it starts this weekend with a big game over another team that will be considered a quality win. Just so people understand, beating a 7-1 Navy team will be considered a quality win. The committee has two types of wins they look at. Top 25 wins, which carry more weight than quality wins, but quality wins is part of the metric they look at. And it's basically any team above 500, which Notre Dame has one against Boise, NC State, and USC. And if they get one this weekend, that'll be their fourth. They get one next weekend, that'll be their fifth. And, now you're kind of cooking. And if you can look good while doing it, then you're really going to roll.
I'm with you. Definitely a lot to look forward to for Notre Dame here in their upcoming schedule. But folks,
handle business. That's what it comes down to, Trav.
Yep. We've been saying it since last year when the SEC was complaining about not getting Alabama, and you got to handle business. And sometimes football is as simple as that. Yeah. I agree completely.
Because you know what, Miami fans, you know what would be in this situation? Don't lose to SMU. And guess what? You're ranked ahead of Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty simple.
Brian, let's dive into part 2 of today's show here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by FanDuel. We're talking keys to victory, and where we always start is on the offensive side of the ball. But before we kind of dive into the meat and potatoes of everything, let's kind of talk about the importance overall of this game on offense, because there are some things that we need to see, and obviously the keys to victory will, it will help this offense take a step in the right direction to going towards what we need to see. But overall, this is a big game for the offense.
Yep. Just a quick reminder, if you have some mailbag questions, go ahead and get those thrown in there now. We will answer those at the end, because some of you may have some questions about the offense too. But, Trev, this is the side of the ball that I'm most concerned about this game. When you look at the defense, I don't know that there's a lot you can learn about the defense. It's going to tell us a lot about how the rest of the year is going to go, because it's such a different animal. But with the offense, I do think that there is something like, look, we have been saying for how many weeks now, if this offense can insert thing that the offense isn't doing, that if they do, that they're going to be really good. And it gets to the point in time where it's like, okay, when is that going to happen? When's that moment going to come that you actually become that team? And, the slow starts frustrate me. But last year's team had slow starts. But you know what they did in the second half? They buried teams. And this team is did that to some degree against NC State. They didn't do it against BC. They didn't do it against Boise State. And so you want to get to the point, Trev, where it's like this unit has to start showing a little bit more consistency and a little bit more fire. And that's something that I think is largely lacking from this offense outside of maybe a couple of guys. It's just that fire to be great, to be dominant. I think Jeremiah Love has it. I think CJ Carr has it. I think Malachi Fields has it. I think Eli Raridan shows it at times. I need to see it from the other receivers a little bit more. I need to see it a little bit more from all of the offensive linemen, and I need to see it more from the Notre Dame coaching staff in what they're demanding from this unit, because you can't keep playing the way they're playing and not sit there and say, what are we doing wrong, or what are we not doing in practice and preparation that's holding this unit back? You can only blame the players so long when things keep happening week after week after week after week before you start saying, okay, are we missing something? Are we not doing something? Are we not utilizing our personnel properly? Are we not practicing a way that can help us reach our full potential? Are we not preparing in a way that allows us to be better on third down? So top to bottom, I think going into this game, you've got to look at this as like a get right moment, and not a get right moment from the standpoint of you're playing a bad team, and so you're going to go out there and roll the ball out and get right, because you had that last week. You're sub 30% on third down your last two games. That's a preparation problem as much as it is an in-game problem. Because whatever you think you're doing in practice to get you prepared for third down, it's not translating to game day. So I just want to see this team, top to bottom, coaches all the way down to players, start to take a little bit of pride. Not that they're not having pride, but take a little bit of pride in, hey, we're going to play this game a certain way. We're going to dominate this game, and we're going to play to, like you say, Trev, to our potential, and go be the team that they're capable of being. Like, to me, a team playing their potential does not max out every game. It's you're within a range of 10 to 15% every game, depending on who you're playing. It's impossible to get up for BC and Navy as much as you're going to get up for Texas A&M or a playoff game. It's impossible. But that doesn't mean you can't then hold yourself to a standard that says, but this is what we want to go do. We want to go, embarrass this team, which is kind of what I thought like the defense has done at times this year. Like NC State, like they just played like they wanted to embarrass NC State. And I want to see more of that from the offensive side of the ball. So big picture, this is a game where I think we're going to learn a lot more about the offense than we do the defense, because it gets to the point, Trev, and I think this is, correct me if I'm wrong, sort of what you were alluding to earlier, is if it doesn't start to happen like kind of now, then you say maybe the team we saw against Purdue and Arkansas isn't who this offense is. Maybe this is who they are. You're always going to be missing something for whatever reason. You're never going to quite put it all together. That's just not who you are now that teams have film on you.
No, it's about attention to detail for me. And that's the issue. Look, we always reference the NC State game. It's like, you think the offense is struggling. Well, look what they did against NC State. Well, I hate to break it to people, but out of their last 4 games, the NC State game is becoming the outlier. Unfortunately, the things that we're seeing from this offense the last couple of weeks are becoming the pattern. And that's not a good spot to be in when you're the offense. I mean, look, Brian, you and I were talking before the show, and I texted you and I said, I'm sick and tired of watching this offense put up close to 500 total yards every single game and scoring under 30 points. They put up 458 total yards of offense against Boston College. They had 25 points on offense. They had 442 total yards of offense against USC, 300 of them coming on the ground. You had 27 offensive points. Against NC State, you had 485 total yards of offense and 34 offensive points. Not bad. And then against Boise State, you had 389 total yards of offense and 28 points. And a lot of that is because of attention to detail and things that we're going to dive into in the keys to victory for this game. But this is going to be a very interesting turning point for the offense. And I'll say this. I know we're not doing, keys to victory as a team, but this is my one takeaway for the team in general. The excuses are gone. There are no more excuses for, we were sloppy against NC State and USC, but, that was the end of a 6-game-in-a-row stretch, and USC was in the cold, and we struggled against Boston College because we had the bye, and now, exactly, you are now out of excuses, and you're going to start really coming close, and you're going to start tailgating that territory of, okay, are you just in a slump, or is this just who you are?
Correct.
And that's a really scary place to be. And especially when you have teams like Oklahoma and Texas nipping on your heels, and you have other teams that can generate some bigger wins than you could potentially down the stretch. So this is what it all comes down to. This offense specifically is going to have to turn some stuff around and have just more attention to detail, because a lot of the mistakes that they have and their inability to sustain long drives, not even sustain, really just finish long drives, has been
right. That's the key right there.
Frustrating.
I mean, we are talking the BC game. We talk about the fumble. Well, what about the drive that ended in BC territory? We turn it over on downs. What about the other drive where you got inside the 40 and faked a punt and didn't get that? Finish those drives, and all of a sudden it's a 50. 8 touchdowns, it's 56 points. You miss 4 extra points. You're winning 52-10. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Because I don't know if it's a guarantee if they would have made many more extra points in that game. It was so in their heads. But, the point is, Trev, it's not about maxing out. It's about just finding a level of consistency. That's going to be,
Absolutely. Well, Brian, let's talk keys to victory then, and what we need to see from this offense specifically against Navy. And, of course, we are starting fast.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to get into an early rhythm. And starting fast is about not just one drive and going down there and scoring points. It's about you come out and take the fight to your opponent drive after drive after drive. You get 4 possessions in the first half, you better score on at least 3 of them, if not all 4. And you better get touchdowns on at least 3 of them. I mean, that's who you're playing. You're playing a defense that's not very good. You're playing a defense that is nowhere as close to you are from a talent level standpoint. So do you have the maturity as a football team to say, okay, because of that, then we need to say that this is the expectation we've set for ourselves. Now let's go prove it. Let's go earn it. Or is it like they're not any good, so we're just going to be able to roll the ball out there and they're going to lay down and die? There's look, let's be real about something. Players are not stupid. especially Notre Dame players. They're going to look at film and say, this team is not very good. Like the offense. Defense may have a different story because they actually have really good talent on offense. I'm talking about the Notre Dame offense. This team is not good. They don't have size. They don't have talent. They don't have speed. Teams rip them up. We should handle our businesses in this game. That is something that any team is going to think. The question about this team is, but what are you going to do about that? Are you going to say, okay, this is the week, guys, we are really going to play to our potential. This is about us. What's our standard now? Not about did you win the game? Well, we did enough to win. No, that's not the standard. The standard is, did you play to a level that you can say, this is what we're capable of? And that's what you have to be. That's the focal point of this, all of this stuff. And it starts with how you come out. And that's something that the last year's offense did a pretty decent job of, Trev, is they came out early and were like, look, this team can't play with us, so we're going to just come out and just bury them right away. And that's what Notre Dame is going to have to do in this game offensively, because I want to see them play with a little bit of something, you know, and you look at last year and, it's 31-7 at halftime. And that was against a better Navy team than this. They had touchdown, missed field goal, touchdown, punt, touchdown, field goal to be up 31-0. So it should have been 34-7, but kicking woes are what they are. And then you come out in the second half and, your first drive of the game, you go right down the field and put the game away. Boom, ball game, 38-7. And, you don't get the ball back until fourth quarter and it's 44-14. So that's what I want to see. Do you have that killer instinct as an offense? Right now, they don't. They're talented. They have tons of gifts. They can do things that are really exciting. But does this team kind of have that dog in them where this offensive team wants to go out there and say, we are good, we know we're good, and we're going to go show everybody that we're good? No, we're good, we know we're good, and we just expect you to lay down and let us roll over top of you. No, that's not what you did to Arkansas. You went out and earned it against Arkansas. You played hard, you executed, you did your job. That's where I want to see from this offense, because when they play to their potential, this offense is absolutely unstoppable when you look at the teams left on their schedule.
The biggest difference, Brian, I'm glad that you brought up last year. Starting fast and remaining fast is such a huge key for this offense. But there's been a shift in our conversations around what this offense was to finish out the season last year after their bye week against Louisville to what it is now. Last year, it was could have. It was a could have conversation of, if they wanted to, Notre Dame could have scored 70 against Florida State. They elected to take their foot off the gas. Last year against Army, it's like they could have put up 55 on Army. They took their foot off the gas. Could have. This year, it's a lot of should have. Notre Dame scored 25 against Boston College. They should have had 40. Like you just laid out, they should have had 50. And that's a real dangerous territory to be in. That's why starting fast and remaining fast is going to be so.
Should have beat Boise 49-7. Should have beat NC State 59-7. I mean, should have done a lot of things. I mean, they should have played against a lot of teams the way they did against Arkansas to some degree. Mm-hmm. And Arkansas, they could have scored 70 as well. They chose not to, but that's a different type of choosing not to than what happened against NC State and what happened at Boston College. They didn't choose. That's why I love this point is they called off the dogs a lot last year, including against Virginia. They left their starters in, but kept playing stuff that wasn't letting their starters go out and score touchdowns.
Yep.
And this is a very different animal. This is like, no, you're not playing the way you're capable of playing, not anywhere close as a unit. And it's always somebody different. It's 1 week it's Jordan Faison, the next week it's Malachi Fields, the next week it's CJ Carr, the next week it's your guards, the next week it's your tackle. Well, I should say guards because the guards have been pretty good since the first couple games. Yeah. It's your center, it's your right tackle, it's whatever. It's your tight ends aren't blocking. There's always a couple things each week. And you're like, where's your desire to be masters of your craft? And where's your desire to really just kind of be that big dog? You know what I mean? Because you are the big dog talent-wise, but you're not playing like it.
Yep.
And I wanted to see more of that. I want to see Jordan Faison play with more urgency. I want to see Will Pauling play with more urgency. I want to see the coaches do more things to get Malachi Fields involved in the game. I want to see, the offensive line come out and just play with fire like they just want to bury Navy. I want to see all that. Because when we see all that, then this team will play to their potential. That's really what it comes down to, is like, do you have that fire in your belly to go be great? And being great is something you earn. Being talented is something you're gifted with. That's God said, this is what I'm going to give you. Trev, I mean, I'm sure you're like where I'm from. I know a lot of guys that probably could have been professional athletes, but just chose not to because they didn't want to work at it. Some things were more important, whatever the case may be. So you've got, you've been gifted the talent, but do you have the mindset of, I want to be great and I'm going to show everyone that I'm great? That's what I want to see.
Next key to victory, Brian, is you have to have a plan for Navy's blitz packages. How to pick it up, how do you beat it? You have to be able to adjust. I mean, you mentioned this yesterday. PJ Volker understands what he has at his disposal from a talent perspective going up against Notre Dame. And you alluded to the fact that, hey, when PJ Volker is going up against a team where he feels like he doesn't have the athletic advantage, kind of throws the book at him, throws the house at him, and Notre Dame's going to have to be ready for that on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I talked about this yesterday, Trev. What will Navy do? Because we knew what everybody was going to do last year. I mean, it was like different versions of the same game plan. How do you stop the run game?
Yep.
Now we're seeing from week to week, okay, 1 week we see teams come out and say, well, we're going to not let them throw on us. And so CJ Carr goes off. Well, we're not going to let them run on us. I mean, excuse me, we're not going to let them throw on us. So then the running backs go off. Or we're not going to let them run on us. So CJ Carr goes off. And it's been kind of hilarious kind of watching how this has played out throughout the season. And then Arkansas tried to be balanced and handle both. And it was like, nope, because now you're going to get beaten both of them. It's like, it's a pick your poison moment to a degree. And what teams that have had some level of success against Notre Dame, keeping the points down, are teams that focus on shutting down the run game. I mean, look, Boise State tried that early. It worked for a while. NC State tried that early. It worked for a while. Boston College tried that, and it worked for 4 quarters. If Notre Dame's defense didn't dominate, that would have been a much different game. So, USC didn't do that. USC tried the opposite. USC said, no, we're gonna slow down your pass game. We're not gonna let you throw on us. And Notre Dame just ran all over them. So it's one of those things, Trev, where if you're looking at PJ Volker and who they have, you have to be prepared. If he chooses to just go drop 8, then that's fine. That's easy to handle. You just run it. You run for 450 yards. I mean, it's not that hard. You have to prepare for the worst case scenario. And so one thing that Marcus Freeman talked about was, well, they've been doing things we weren't prepared for. That's on you. That's on you. I mean, I've said this before. Coach Heastan, I was talking to some offensive linemen, and they're like, Coach Heastan would throw stuff at us that he never saw in film from that team. And we'd go over the looks that we saw, but then he'd just start throwing slants and stunts at us that we hadn't prepared for during practice. So when we got to Saturday, he's like, look, they know they can't go mano a mano against us. So what they're going to do is they're going to do some things that we haven't seen before. And they're always prepared for it. I remember a lesson I learned my first year of coaching from Joe Fincham, who was a great head coach, one of the winningest coaches in Division III history. We were getting ready to play Wabash, whose head coach was Chris Creighton. We're getting ready to go play who's now the head coach of Eastern Michigan. And I remember what Coach said to me, because I was responsible for getting the scout cards ready. So I had to break down the opponent film, know what their different looks were. And he said to me, he goes, look, today I want you to just throw any blitz you can think of at us. And I was like, okay, you mean like from what? He goes, no, just obviously you want to do the stuff they do. He goes, but I think they're going to come at us with a lot of different stuff because they haven't been able to stop our run game, this, that, and the other thing. Cool. So, dude, I'm throwing all these crazy blitzes at him. And it got to the point where, like, on day 2, he's like, okay, chill out a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're because like I was like, that's what he's like, but by getting used to stopping that stuff, there was nothing that Wabash is going to throw at us in the game that we weren't prepared for. We went out and won the game. And that's something that you look at and say, okay, you have to say, okay, what can they do that could give us problems and prepare for it. And if they don't do it, then you just dominate. And so the great offensive staffs are the ones that have a plan for what's unseen. especially against inferior opponents. And so a big part of this is coaching-wise. You have to have a blitz plan, how to pick it up, because look, we saw this in 2022. Notre Dame in the first half was ripping Navy apart. And then second half, Navy was like, look, we got nothing to lose. I mean, we're absolutely getting annihilated here, guys. Like we're getting slaughtered. Or was it? Yeah, it was 22. Because 23 is the Ireland game, right? 22 is the game that was in Baltimore.
Yes.
And it was 35-13 at halftime. I'm just looking at that now. And Jaden Thomas had a couple touchdown passes. Like Drew Pine was just killing Navy in the first half. Second half, you come out, and Navy's just throwing all these crazy blitzes. And Drew Pine's missing open guys. He had Michael Mayer open for a touchdown. He didn't see him because the pressure got to him. The offensive line couldn't run block because they were just throwing everything that they could at the front. And Notre Dame couldn't handle it. And so Notre Dame scores 35 points at halftime. Remember when I said the score was 35-13 at halftime, Trev? You remember what the final score was? 35-32. Which means they scored nada in the second half. That staff was not prepared to handle things they hadn't seen on film. This staff can't make that same mistake. And that's part of being a great staff is this team knows they're not as good as us. What are they going to throw at us that is going to, give us problems? Now, part of that's self-scouting. What have teams done to give us problems in the past? And then have a plan for it.
Sticking along
do that
the
and you dominate. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I needed to take a breath there. But, yeah, do that and you dominate. Do that and you're going to run on them and you're going to throw on them because it's kind of like we were with BC. BC starts bringing all this inside pressure. Notre Dame had no game plan for that outside of throw bombs. There were things that they could and should have done to get the ball outside in different ways to take advantage of that. That's on you as a coaching staff. And so they're going to have a better, do a much better job of that in these last 4 games because these teams are not going to sit back and play base defense. Because you know why? Because they're going to watch USC. They're going to watch Arkansas. They're going to watch NC State sit back and play their base defense with some run stunts and get gashed either through the air, through the pass, or through the run game. They're going to watch BC. Yeah, they gave up some big plays, but Notre Dame also had a lot of 2s and 1s and 3s, and that's why they only had 25 points. Well, if they would have done this, 38 points against BC, which is what they would have had if they would have not fumbled, kicked the field goal, and kicked 2 extra points. That gets them to what, Trev? 38? 38 is still way under what you should have been against Boston College. So that's got to start at the top, have a plan for it, practice it, rep it. And then when Navy tries to bring that stuff, you're good. Hey, we knew if they started doing this, we knew we have answers. And this is what we go to. If they can do that, then they're going to rip Navy up.
Kind of falls in line with our third key to victory here, Brian. It's dominate up front. And this is something that I am very, very keen on and need to see this group. Now, and I'm coming at this from a run game perspective. I would argue, especially from a numbers standpoint, Notre Dame's offensive line's pass protection really the last 6 games has been exceptional, especially when you go look at the numbers on PFF. They haven't allowed over 5 pressures in a game since Texas A&M. 5 total.
Yeah, and here's the thing on that. They haven't played anybody that's a good pass rushing team in that stretch either. But even bad teams will get more than 5 or 6 pressures in a game.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's like it's no, they haven't played a Texas A&M or a Miami or anything like that. But like, you have to be able to evaluate is what they're doing translate. And for the most part, there were some mistakes against Boston College that were concerning from the 2 tackles, but for the most part, it's been really dominant.
Yeah,
like to the point where like those teams aren't good at rushing the passer, but those teams are also having their worst performances against Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference.
Yeah, I mean that includes Brandon Cleveland at NC State. That includes Cameron Ball and Ian Gefford at Arkansas. Ideally, that's also going to include Landon Robinson this week. And they've allowed 2 sacks in the last 6 games. And again, level of opponent matters. I agree completely. But even against Texas A&M, they allowed 7 pressures. So it's not like against Purdue they allowed 4 and against A&M they allowed 15. So it's like this has been a group that has improved. Where I'm going to be very interested is to see how they do it in the run game because the size advantage is ridiculous. And this is probably going to be one of the few defensive lines moving forward that Notre Dame is going to have that significant size advantage on. When you look from left to right, they have a 6'3", 263-pound defensive end. Both of their interior guys are 6'1" or under. One of them's 287 pounds. That's Landon Robinson. The other one's 273 pounds. And then Luke Parise is 6'4", 217 pounds. Across the board, Notre Dame is all over 300 pounds. Their two guards are 327 and 325. One of them 6'8", one of them 6'7". This has to be a game that you are dominant in the run game. Has to be.
Yeah, it's just about taking the fight to the other team. I mean, you're bigger than they are. You're better than they are. You're better than they are. Play like it. I mean, Sylvan Absher is still better than anybody that, with all due respect, other than Landon Robinson, maybe. Sylvan Absher and Joe Otting are still better than anybody they're going to go against the Navy. And it's just, you know, how prepared are they from an offensive coaching standpoint, offensive line? I mean, how prepared does Joe Rudolph have them for all the different things they're going to do? And then what's the game plan that allows them? And then how do you motivate them during the week to go out there and play smart, fast, and physical? That's what it's going to come down to. And then plus players, how do you take that coaching and how do you apply it in a way that allows you to play your game? Dominate up front, you dominate this game. I mean, honestly, we could have just had that as the one key. There's a little bit more to it than that, but if we wanted to be simplistic, dominate up front, you dominate this game offensively.
Next key to victory, this offense has to find a way to be more creative with their personnel. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks, and what you're starting to do is becoming extremely predictable. You got to find ways to be more creative with who you have on the field, and you got to find more ways to get the other people involved. You have to.
Well, my thing is creativity isn't always about running a million plays. Like, I think that's how a lot of fans do, they only ran 3 run plays. So I've seen Notre Dame dominate games with 2. I've seen Notre Dame run for 500 yards in a game against Boston College, and I believe they ran 4 run plays. They ran like buck sweep, inside zone, quarterback power, and I think they ran a G scheme. That's it. But they did it in a lot of different ways. They did it out a lot of different looks. They didn't telegraph the runs. But when I think of creativity, it's not just, okay, you need 37 different pass concepts. It's like, no, have Malachi Fields play here, here, and here at different times. You know you're going to get on third down, you're going to get a certain look from them. And you're going to have a great matchup in the slot. Okay, cool. Could Will Pauling win that matchup? Maybe. But, look, he's 5'10", that guy's 5'11", he has to outrun him. Maybe he does. He get a good release. Like, the odds are greater there that you put 6'4", 220-pound Malachi Fields in that matchup that they're not prepared for. And now you run your whatever route you want to run, and you've got a much better matchup there. You know what I mean? And that's not saying that Will Pauling can't go make plays. Will Pauling has made plays this year. It's more so that's your best receiver. Do more to get him the ball. They are making it way too easy for opposing teams to take their best receiver out of the game. And that's 100% a coaching issue. So do more things like that. Do more things where you have them to the field. Do more things where you put, like, here's a little small thing. Put your formation into the boundary. Meaning put Pauling and Faison into the boundary. And put Fields and Raridan to the field, and then run some stuff that way pass game wise. And here's a crazy thought: run a freaking swing your running backs to the field with Malachi and Eli Raridan blocking for them. Like, there's just little things like that where you don't have to add anything new to your playbook, but how you're getting to it is allowing you to get better matchup situations. Instead of having Eli Raridan go in motion, have him and Fields go in the field, and have Will Pauling go in motion and run a swing to him or Jordan Faison. I mean, there's so many different things you can do that don't ask you to put a lot of new concepts in, that changes nothing for the blocking of your offensive line, changes nothing for your quarterback read, but just says, we're going to attack you differently. That's creativity that I want to see more of. I think Mike Brown's done a lot of good things. One of the things I'm disappointed in, obviously we talked about the rotation, is just the lack of from him and Mike Denbrock to a degree as well, because I've seen Mike Denbrock do this. He did this at LSU. He would move Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas around the formation all the time. Why not do that with Malachi Fields? Why not do that with Jordan Faison? You think he's the dude. I mean, he was playing twice as many snaps as Jaden Greathouse before Jaden Greathouse got hurt. You clearly think he's a dude. Cool. Maybe find some other ways to get him to football then. So those are things that I want to see more of to take advantage of what Navy's going to do. Because what they're going to do is they're going to blitz more and bracket Fields. Well, you can't bracket a guy if he's playing to the field, or if you do, you're screwed. You know, like you're really in trouble. Put Eli Raridan to the boundary and put Malachi Fields outside, and then have some fun with that. Say, okay, if they want to overload here and leave a corner backside one-on-one and Eli Raridan, then we're just going to throw some routes to Eli Raridan. That's what I'm talking about. It doesn't change a single thing about your pass concepts. It just allows you to attack the defense differently. Because how you defend a slot fade with Malachi Fields or Eli Raridan is going to be different than how you defend a slot fade against Will Paulding or Jordan Faison. Doesn't make them better or worse. It just gives you something else to think about. If you're a quarterback, it's the same read. If your offensive line, it's the same pass protection. But you're attacking a defense very differently.
Yeah.
That's the kind of creativity I want to see. And not like run these 87 concepts. You know my stance. I want to see more post-snap switches. I'm always about post-snap switches. I don't know why the staff refuses to do it more. When they've done it, they're really good at it. I don't get it. Whatever. Like, that's just, it is what it is. This is something that's an easier thing for you to do within what you're already doing and what you like to do. Just have this guy run it as opposed to that guy run it.
Sure.
Not that this guy can't do it. It's just something different to think about, something different to worry about. You know, like if you put Malachi Fields into the slot and you put Will Paulding outside and Jordan Faison backside and you ran your double post that way, you don't think that safety might bite down on Will Paulding? I mean, on Malachi Fields? Then what's that going to do for Will Paulding outside at his 4.39 speed? Over top, touchdown. You see what I'm saying? So it's just kind of frustrating.
No, I get you. Mine's more formationally. I don't think they have to go and add 80 new plays. I will say, if you're going into your 9th game of the season and your players are unable to comprehend 10 more plays, then I think that's also kind of an issue. This isn't week 2. So I would argue for maybe a few more creative different plays, but even formationally, there's still no threat of Ty Washington as a receiving threat out of 12 personnel. Still none. He doesn't have a single target. All 3 of his targets came against Purdue. The new formation that they've been going to is 13 personnel. If I see Matt Jeffrey come on the field, I'm not having a single corner anywhere outside of the box. I'm not. If I'm a defensive coordinator, you got to keep teams honest. If I see 13 personnel with Matt Jeffrey on the field, it's a run. 100% of the time it's a run until proven differently. That's what I want to see from more creativity. You don't have to come out in 90 different formations and go, turbo and not huddle and run 13 plays in a minute and a half. That's not what I want to see. It's do more within the framework of your offense. I have no issue with 13 personnel if you diversify what you do out of it. I'm okay with running more 12 personnel if Ty Washington becomes any remote of a threat. And it's not a skill thing. Like, it's not that he has the inability to catch a pass. And if he did, you also have Jack Larson, who people have said have had the best hands on the team, waiting on the sideline as well. That's what I want to see, because it's way too predictable. How we were sitting up in the press box against Boston College, tried it out in 13 personnel. It's like, yep, inside run to the strong side every time. Mm-hmm. Every time. And so that's what I want to see in creativity and personnel as well, on top of everything that you said, because you got to start diversifying. Brian, all that leads us to.
Well, last thing on that too is I part of that is I would like to see a little bit more tempo. They've definitely gone away from that the last couple games.
Yeah,
that was working for them for a while.
Sure was. Mix
that in there too.
All of that, Brian, kind of leads us up to the final point of our key to victory, and they have to be able to finish drives.
Yeah,
have to. And now that they have this extra point problem, finishing is in every sense of the word. Even if you score a touchdown, you have to finish the point after attempt. This offense has to get better at finishing. It's imperative.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, if you think about the number of – I mean, this is kind of a crazy thing to think about. Right now, Notre Dame has the number 14 scoring offense in college football. if you look at just against FBS opponents, so you take out FCS games, Notre Dame has the number 8 scoring offense in college football. If you look at just against Power 5 teams, Notre Dame has the number 3 scoring offense in college football. And the only team that's at the FBS level that scored more than them is Indiana. You think about that, and then you think about how many drives they have had stall inside the 25-yard line or even just the 10-yard line. It's maddening.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Boise, NC State, what they have 2 drives die inside the 10 against NC State.
I have,
go ahead, Trev.
I mean, look, for as good as Notre Dame's offense has been, they rank 125th in the country in red zone scoring. That's really bad. Really, really bad. And part of the reason why, we talk about finishing. Against Boston College, you missed 2 extra points, 1 field goal on the 2-minute drive to end the half. You had a red zone fumble on a 5-play, 59-yard drive. Against USC, you had a red zone interception in the second quarter on a 9-play, 79-yard drive and a missed field goal on an 8-play, 31-yard drive. You mentioned what they did against NC State. And then against Boise State, you had a turnover on downs in the red zone on your first drive of the game. Yep. That went for 10 plays, 73 yards. You also had a turnover on downs in the second quarter on the 28-yard line, so just outside of the red zone on a 5-play, 30-yard drive. It's just a lot of empty yards. That's why Notre Dame is racking up all these games where they have almost 500 total yards of offense, and they're scoring under 30 points a game in those 4 games. Average. It's got to change.
You are the number against Power 4 teams, right? So let's just kind of go look at this. Just against Power 4 teams, Notre Dame has the number 3 scoring offense in college football, and second amongst Power 4 teams, because as we mentioned, I think it's like North Texas has like 1 game of 59 points against Washington State. You have the number 3 scoring offense in college football. You have the number 44 touchdown offense in college football in the red zone. If you're just top 25, you're the number 1 scoring offense in college football right now. Like, I mean, you've fumbled the ball twice inside the 5 and lost it. You've turned it over on downs near the goal line. You got down to the 1-yard line, got a false start, knocked you back, you end up not getting it. You're missing. I mean, I wouldn't even attempt a field goal at this point in time. So my thing is if you just get better at finishing, that for all the other stuff we talk about, if you just scored every time you got inside the 5-yard line, we're having a very different conversation about this football team.
Agreed.
Offensively.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And scoring, obviously, touchdowns over field goals if you can. But at this point, it's just any points on the board because there's been too many that have been left off. Way too many. I talked about this yesterday. FanDuel has their over-under point total once again set at over 40. It's at 41.5. And offensively, they've scored 30 once in their last 4 games. That's it's interesting that the line continues to be set there. Really interesting.
Say that again. They've only scored over 30 once in their last 4 games?
Offensively.
Yeah, because USC, they got 27. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Boise, they didn't get – yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. That just didn't seem right at first. And you're like, holy crap. Yeah, you're right. In 2 of those games, they didn't get to 30, period.
Yep.
I keep forgetting about Jadarian Price's touchdown against USC.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. And they even got a safety against NC State to get him up to 36. Mm-hmm. So 34 against NC State is now the outlier in the last 4 games. Got to get it turned around. But finishing drives is going to be absolutely crucial, Brian. Just so crucial.
Yep.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for the offensive keys to victory. Don't go anywhere. We're getting ready to talk defensive keys to victory here. But before we get there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the CFB Nation channel. Bill Bender and Bill Troche are going live tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow night at 8 p.m. for this week's edition of the Spread Option, I'll be going live with Jesse Stiers for this week's edition of the Spread Option. A lot of good games to talk about. Also, make sure that you have that notification bell hit. And then also make sure that you get your mailbag questions in. We are doing a mailbag at the end of today's show. We have a good amount of questions in there already. Can't wait to get some of those answered. And as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. All right, Brian, in part 3 of today's show here in the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, we're talking defensive keys to victory. And before we dive into it, like we did on the offensive side, this is a meaningful game for the defense as well, but a little different tune than on offense because they're facing a different challenge than what they've faced so far this season. It's a triple option, and one that's always gives some teams some headaches. Notre Dame has a little bit more familiarity with it than some other programs, but still another big test for this defense.
It is. I mean, this is one of those games, Trevor, where honestly, I don't care about stats at the end of the game. I don't care about how many rushing yards you give up. I just care about making stops. It's not a game where I'm gonna be pissed if Chris Ash has a terrible game plan for it, but it's not one of those games where I'm gonna be like, well, you gave up, this many yards and rushing and you did this and you did that. Dude, just make stops. Just every other, minimum every other drive, make a stop, and then a couple times hold them to field goals. Honestly, it's such a unique offense. Now, if you dominate it, that's great. That's awesome, right? But it's what I'm saying is it's a different standard when you're playing the option than I would another team. If just on town alone, Navy has no business being over 10 against Notre Dame. But that's why Navy runs the option. It's an equalizer. And it's even more hard to prepare for now because so few teams run it. I mean, there's a time in the 90s when you could argue two of the best teams in college football were Notre Dame and Nebraska, and they were both running an option offense. It's a different version of it. It's the power option. They were running an option offense. In the 1980s, Oklahoma was one of the premier dominant teams in college football, and they were a pure option team, like with Jamel Holloway and Turner. Nebraska had Turner Gill. I mean, they were a pure option offense. That's why Troy Aikman left Oklahoma. He's like, I'm not running the option. So it's difficult to defend. So my thing is just give me some stops and have clutch stops, right? And try to get the ball, be smart, be sound. It really just comes down to, look, just do what you got to do to make enough stops to win this game comfortably. If they give up 24 points in Navy and score 56, good job, coach. Honestly, it's just such a different animal. Now, if your team is woefully unprepared and has no answers, that's a different sort of criticism, but it won't be the same. If they give up 24 points, but they're missing tackles and being undisciplined and they don't have a plan for this or that, then I'll be more critical. But if it's a good sound plan and Blake Horvath just went out and made a couple crazy plays and they scored 24 points and you win by 30, cool. Now let's go focus on real offenses moving forward. You know what I mean? Something you might face again. That's the big thing here and then, a lot of the keys that we're going to talk about, Trev, are about that. They're similar to what I talk about every year when you're playing the option. You've had to tinker it a little bit based on what they do, but it really just comes down to, and you look at key one, Trev, it's have a sound game plan, not too complex, but not too simplistic. That's the danger some teams have. We're going to have all these answers for the option. Well, no, you're not. Or we're just going to come out and just, you hit this guy, you hit that guy, you hit that guy. No, you're going to get killed if you try to do that. You have to have some level of answers without having too much. And it really just comes down to that, is have a sound game plan, but then have an idea of what your adjustments are going to be if that stuff doesn't work, or if it is working, have an idea of what their adjustments are going to be and be prepared for it. That's really, at the end of the day, I've seen so many teams, Trevor, get in trouble against Navy because they think they get too cute and they're like, oh, we're a 4-down team, but we're going to go 3-3 stack against Navy. That's not who you are, and just have a sound game plan that allows your players to go at Navy and attack Navy. It's not one of the keys to victory. It's part of to me, having a sound game plan is the biggest mistake I've seen teams make is when they try to, you can make two mistakes with Navy. One is you're too aggressive. And the other is you're not aggressive at all. You just sit back and you're just like, hey, we're just going to play assignment football and just sit back. You remember the year? Can't remember what year it was. I can't remember if it was Diaco or if it was Van Gorder. And they came out, I think it was Van Gorder, and they had their D lineman like a yard and a half off the ball. Do you remember that? And you're like, oh my God, what moron thought that was a good idea? Seriously, you should have brought in the head coach from Mishawaka High School and be like, hey man, is this going to work? No, I think we might run for 250 on you guys if you tried that. You know what I mean? Because they run the option. It's not a shot at Mishawaka High School. That just they run the option. I believe they still run the option, correct? Trev, I know they ran it when you were in around here, but I'm pretty sure they still run the option. But it's just one of those things where it's like, dude, don't be stupid. Don't be passive, be aggressive, but not too aggressive. Have a smart game plan and be prepared to have some answers. And then at the end of the day, if you do that and your players know what they're doing and they can go execute, you'll do what you need to do, just like last year, just like the year before.
Yeah, the biggest aspect of the key to victory number one is being willing to make adjustments. Notre Dame, really, for the majority of this 6-game win streak that they've been on, the second half defense has been fantastic. They still haven't allowed a team to score a touchdown in the fourth quarter, outside of Purdue. They're on a 5-game win streak of that. So the adjustments that they've been able to make in going against a more traditional offense has been good this year. Can you do that against Navy? That is going to be such a big part of this game, because we talked a lot about defensive coordinators' first year against Navy. Al Golden struggled to make adjustments at halftime, shut them down in the first half. That was not the case in the second half. That can't be this type of game, because right now, because of the struggles that we just got done talking about on offense, you can't expect the offense is just going to put up 45 points and Navy's just going to fall so far behind that they become a one-dimensional team. You just can't rely on that. So second half adjustments are going to be huge. And assuming the game plan is sound and you have a good game plan and good adjustments, key to victory number two is you have to be disciplined. Navy is a team that will take advantage of any undisciplinary act that you make. They're a team that is very advantageous. They're very efficient, extremely efficient offense. And if you don't play disciplined football, and I'll just knock this out of the park real quick right now, you got to tackle. I said it at the beginning of the show. This team is now out of excuses. Your 6-game streak is now over, and sure, you're rusty out of the bye. That doesn't negate the fact that they've missed 29 tackles in the last 3 games. Navy, especially with Horvath, who has 23 missed tackles on the season, with Alex Tetska, who's over a third of his carries have gone for first downs, and then with an electric Swiss Army knife like Eli Heidenreich, you miss a tackle on one of those guys, they're gone. Blake Horvath had a really long touchdown run last year against Notre Dame, and there were a couple missed tackles on that play. You got to tackle. That's a big part for me about being disciplined against this team.
Discipline against Navy is such a different word than it is against everybody else. It's not about, don't get the bad penalties. And, that's always true. It's about you have to trust your job. This is the one defense or one offense where you can, there's a couple plays we pointed out last week of Drake Bowen. It's in the run game breakdown video I showed where Drake Bowen had a gap, but then he also then read the play and saw that the ball was going to a different gap, and so he jumped the gap and made the play. This is a game where you may think the ball's going here, but in reality it doesn't. And then you lose your gap because you're trying to make a play and go to the ball, when in reality, oh, shoot, I thought the quarterback had the ball. I didn't realize he gave it to the fullback. Or I thought the fullback had the ball. I didn't realize the quarterback pulled it. You have to do your job. And you see guys oh, the quarterback's coming right at me. I'm supposed to be the pitch man, but the quarterback's coming right at me. And so then you step to the quarterback and balls out as he's going to the ground. Because you ever see Pony XS? Did you ever see that? Okay. You got to watch. It's a great 30 for 30. But they had this little quarterback, Lance McElhaney, and he would just, it's like he's about to go down. There's 3 guys hit him, and then the ball just comes flying out. Eric Dickerson catches it, and he's gone. You know what I mean? Blake Horvath has a little bit of that in him, where it's you think he's about to go down. He's a knee about to hit the ground, and the ball comes out, and he gets it to a guy. If your job is quarterback, stay on the quarterback. If your job is pitch man, stay on the pitch man. If your job is fullback dive, take fullback dive. If your job is B gap, dominate the B gap. That's what discipline is in this game. And for DBs especially, you start getting focused on peeking into the backfield, trying to get downhill and make a play. Next thing you know, the ball's coming out at you. Temple goes down and has a nice long drive against Navy. They miss a field goal. Navy comes down, and next thing you know, there's a Navy tight end running right down the middle of the field, wide open. because it looked like a run. And next thing you know, this guy is going out, because a lot of times, like, what they're going to go do to block on the perimeter, they turn it into a pass route. It looks exactly the same on the release. Have to be disciplined in this game, Trev. It's so important, because the thing is, you could, and we saw it last year against Navy. They did a lot of great things against Navy, and it's like, shut them down, fumble, shut them down. Horvath goes for 50. You know what I mean? It's like, shut them down. Horvath goes for 40. And you're like, dude, like, this guy's got a little something to him. You know, it's like, I'm trying to remember, Trev, what his numbers were in last year's game. Let me pull it up here real quick.
I think he won for over 100. He had like 1 yard.
Yeah.
He had one rush that was for like 75
14
yards.
carries for 129 yards, including a 60-yard run. If you go back and break that game down, I would be willing to argue that 10 of his runs did nothing. Just nothing. But then those 4 runs go for, I mean, he had 2 runs, I think, that just by themselves went for over 100 yards. Well, it didn't hurt you last year because your offense was rolling. But what if your offense isn't rolling early in this game? So discipline is so important. It starts front to back. But it's every bit as important for the guys on the back end. Because if a D lineman doesn't do his job, it might be a fullback dive for 15. If a corner or a safety doesn't do his job, it's a touchdown. And that's the key. You know, you really got to be disciplined and do your job. You know, yeah, that's where it's at.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. The third key to victory is stopping Alex Tetzka, the fullback. That's how Navy becomes a balanced offense. They can hurt you through the air, but when they become balanced, it's when Tetzka's ripping you for 5, 6, 7 yards a carry. Then before you know it, Horvath takes it around the edge for 45.
I've always believed that the option starts through with the fullback and the quarterback. Like that's where the option is. You don't get ripped up by slot backs against Navy unless you're just not disciplined. Where you get really hurt by Navy, and we saw this, was it, what game was it? There's a game, the 2022 game was kind of similar to that, but we've seen games in the past against Navy where Navy makes the game a lot closer than it should be. And a big reason for that is because the fullback goes off.
Yeah, what was that game that Dabo Fofana just absolutely ran nuts? Was that 22 or was that?
Yeah, no, that was 22. The second half. It was all in the second half. He had 133 yards on 15 carries in that game. In the second half, just 50-yard gain right up the middle. There was another one. I think it was – let me go find it. Let me see this. So there was a couple other games, Trev, where Navy made the game a little bit closer than the game should have been. And a lot of it was it 2018? They had a nice little second half comeback, and a lot of it was just the fullback just ripping them up, you know. And so, you've got to have a plan for the fullback. I mean, you think back to the 2010 game, Alexander Teach just going off on Notre Dame, just absolutely going off on Notre Dame. You do a good job there, and you'll have a good – you shut down the fullback, you've got your odds of shutting down the option increase dramatically. Absolutely dramatically. I think, what did Teach have? I'm going to look this up. What did he have in 2010? I know he went off on Notre Dame as well. He had 210 yards on 26 carries. Yeah. That'll do it.
Lord.
Yeah, that'll do it. They completed they attempted 2 passes, completed both of them for 71 yards, and beat Notre Dame by 18.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you're not prepared for the veer.
Exactly right. Exactly right. That's such a petty comment that I'm absolutely love, Trev. But I mean, that's the thing, is you got to take the fullback out. You got to have a plan to say the fullback is not going to hurt us today. Because if the fullback starts hurting you, it makes it a lot harder for you to stop the quarterback. And you got to be able to handle both of them. But to me, it all starts with a fullback. Hit them and hit them often, hit them hard. Because what that does is, if you have a plan to crash the fullback, it forces the quarterback to, and we should have talked about this in the first key, but when it comes to the option, you want to make it work laterally, not vertically. And when it gets going, it's vertical. It's the fullback, it's the quarterback duck plays where, they fake the dive, they take a step, and then you're running a kick out, and he just gets right in behind it. That's when they kill you. They may get a play or two on the perimeter, but when the option is really punishing you, it's in between the slot backs. That's when you get crushed. That's where Notre Dame's had some problems. Yeah, you give up a wheel route, you're going to give up a couple pitch plays, but unless you're just terrible as a defensive coaching staff, you're not going to give up 40 because of the slot. Where you give up 20, 30 points is because your fullback and quarterback are just ripping you up. You want to make them work laterally, but a key to that is, and this is why I think being aggressive is important, when a quarterback can really ride it out and then attack and then stretch out the play, like that's when they can get you in trouble. What you want to do is you want to attack initially, force him to declare where the ball is going right now, then string it out. And so that's why I think hitting that fullback real quickly is important, because you want to make the quarterback declare, do you have the ball or not? The other thing I've always found, if you can hit the quarterback and if you really crash the fullback, you almost have to take their triple look away. Because I've seen it where Navy, a team that really crashes the fullback hard, Notre Dame has done that, and that exchange with the quarterback and the fullback gets a little messed up. Now the whole timing of the option is off. Because the big key to the option working is you got to get that timing with the pitch guys real well. And if that quarterback's kind of late getting the ball out or has to get it out there too quickly, next thing you know, the pitch man is either too far out if the ball comes out late, or the pitch man's not far enough. And you'll see, like, where the heck was he pitching that ball? You're pitching that to a degree blind sometimes, because you're anticipating he's got to be here. And that's his job, is to get here. And that's why you'll see a quarterback just pitch a ball, and you're like, dude, he pitched that ball 3 feet in front of that guy. Yeah, because the guy didn't get to where he was supposed to be. Or that guy pitched the ball behind that guy. That's a terrible pitch. Nope. He's pitching where he's supposed to pitch. He's got his eyes on the key. Gets it out. That guy was too far ahead. So the more you hammer the fullback, Trev, the more you throw off the timing of the whole operation. So it's not just don't let, Alex Tezca beat you. It's also about taking him out forces the whole thing to be a little bit off. And that's where you can have success.
Stopping the fullback is also going to go a long way of dominating on first down, and that's the fourth key to victory. Marcus Freeman actually talked about this in his press conference, and he was asked about, struggling to stop opposing offenses on third and fourth and short situations, kind of alluding to the struggles that they had against Boston College on that 11-minute drive that they went on. And his answer was simple. So you have to do better on first and second down. And so this is a really, really important key, especially with this offense, Brian. Putting this team behind the sticks and getting them off schedule puts them in a spot where they have to run an offense that they're not as comfortable with. And that's something that is going to be huge in this matchup.
Well, yeah, that's a big part of it. The other part of it too, Trev, is if you're an option team like this, you're 4 downs a lot.
Yeah.
Now, Navy hasn't been as much of that this year. Part of that's because they don't get to a lot of third down. I mean, they don't get to a lot of fourth down. So if you look at Navy this year, Trev, they rank 53rd in the country in third down and fourth down attempts. Army's second. And that's where Navy used to be. They used to be, much higher, like 2021, they were 11th. 2022, they were 4th. 2023, they were 42nd. Last year, they were 65th. Well, it might seem like, okay, so are they not doing as many, are they not, like getting to that as much? No. It's because Navy this year is 133rd in third down attempts. So to be 133rd in third down attempts, what did I say? 65th in fourth down attempts? Is that the number I said? Let me pull that up here real quick.
I think in fourth down attempts, I thought you said
53rd. So they're 133rd in third down attempts, but they're 53rd in fourth down attempts. Tells you that they're still going for it on fourth down at a very high rate. So why is Navy 133rd in most third down attempts? Because they're not getting to third down. You got to get them into third and fourth down. But if you get them to a bunch of third and fours, third and twos, then they're just going to keep going for it. And they're just going to go right down the field where you can hurt Navy. And when Notre Dame has had success against Navy, you're getting negatives, stuffs and negatives on first and then also second down. That's the key. Get them in 3rd and 9. That's not where they want to be. Then you can, they get a 4-yard gain. Now it's 4th and 5. They may still go for it, but the odds are much less that they're going to get it. The further back you can have them on 3rd and 4th down, the greater chance you have of making stops. And also, to your point, they like to throw the ball more. They don't want to have to throw the ball. Like, meaning they don't want to throw the ball because they have to. They want to throw the ball because they want to.
Yeah.
Because they're still an option team, Trev. They're still a team that goes out there, and if they're cooking, they don't need to throw the ball. We've seen that. UAB, they won that game. They threw the ball 8 times. We've seen that. Last year, beating Army. Horvath only threw the ball 9 times against Oklahoma. Only threw the ball 12 times. So that's a key is they're going to want to throw the ball on their own choosing. You need to put them in more situations where they kind of feel they have to throw the football. It's 3rd and 12. You can't assume that they're going to throw the ball there because there's still things they're going to do, but you have a better shot of then going and winning in those situations if you can get them into more of those down and distances.
You mentioned their lack of attempts on 3rd down. One of the reasons is this is an explosive offense, and that's the final key to victory. It's limiting big plays. They rank 2nd in the country in runs of 20 yards or longer, and they rank 46 in the country in completions of 30 yards or longer. They have 13 on the year, which might not sound that impressive, but considering they don't really throw the ball all that much, kind of adds a little bit of context to those numbers, Brian.
Well, here's some numbers for you. And we talk context, Trev. Let's just talk about their team as a whole, right? So not rushing, not passing, just as a whole. They are 44th in college football in plays of 20 yards or more. Or excuse me, they're 28th in college football with plays of 20 yards or more. They have 44. They rank in college football this year also in plays of 30 yards or more. They have 25 plays of 30 yards or more. That's over 3 a game. They have 25. They are also 4th in college football in plays of 50 yards or more. They have 10. They're only 1 behind Florida State and Utah State, and only 2 behind Texas State. And Navy this year is tied for 1st in all of college football with 7 plays of 60 yards or more this season. So they've also have an 80-yard play. So this is a team that is a big play offense. And Trev, you and I have been talking about it since last year. They have better athletes than they've had in other years. Like they've had really dynamic quarterbacks. I mean, Keenan Reynolds was special. Ricky Dobbs was special. I mean, Keenan Reynolds spent some time in the NFL playing a non-quarterback position just as an athlete. Malcolm Perry was probably the most explosive athlete that they've ever had at quarterback, in my opinion. I mean, he was a very special athlete. He's a guy, Trev, that when you look at him, you say, hey, this is a guy that, the kid they have now is as good as any of them when it comes to, just being able to be a playmaker. He maybe isn't as explosive athletically as Malcolm Perry. It's not too far behind. Just a really special player. But the kid they have at fullback, Teska, that's a good athlete. Brandon Chapman's a good athlete. But Eli Heidenreich is a legit good slot receiver. Like if let's say Notre Dame needs a slot receiver next year and somehow he jumped in the portal. I don't know if he has eligibility left. I'm making a point. Would I look at him? Yeah, I'd look at him. He's a legit good football player. So they have legit athletes on top of the scheme being difficult to challenge for. So they have been a major big play football team. I mean, they're averaging over 150-yard gain a play a game, Trev. They've got 10 in 8 games. So, what was it that really that hurt Oklahoma last year? It was a 90-plus yard touchdown run from Blake Horvath. So you have to limit the big plays. They get 1 or 2. You don't like it, but you can live with it. You've got to limit them overall. You got to limit the 20-plus yard gains, and you definitely have to limit the game-changing plays. If they run for 30 yards at their own 15, yeah, that sucks, but they still haven't crossed midfield yet. What you can't let them do is when they rip it off from their own 15, they house it or they go for 50 or 60. You've got to be able to limit the big plays against them. No question about it. It's like, because again, they're not nearly as talented as you. What's the great equalizer? Your lack of discipline, which then leads to big plays. That's where the big plays come from. It's just You're either not schemed well or you're not disciplined as a football team. And that's how they can eat you up, Trevor. I mean, it could be gain 2 on first down, gain 1 on third down, second down is 3rd and 7. You don't have proper backside discipline. They run reverse, and it's 25 yards. You know, it's you're stuffing them, and they come out on the first play of a drive and run their option look, and you're not disciplined. You don't cover the slot back on a wheel route. Boom, just like that, it's 7 points. That's the stuff you have to really be on guard against when you play this team. Is you've got to be on guard with some of those big play opportunities, and that goes back to discipline. It goes back to having a sound game plan, and to your point, Trev, it also goes back to tackling well. Those things are all a factor in this game plan when you're taking on a team like Navy. Got to limit big plays, man. And all these things go together. A sound game plan that's not too complex but not too simplistic leads to being disciplined. Part of a sound game plan is you have to have a plan to stop the fullback. Part of a sound game plan or an properly aggressive game plan is you dominate on first and second down. You dominate on first and second down while also being disciplined. Guess what? You're not going to give up a lot of big plays. It's not that complicated. I mean, it is, but it isn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's much easier said than done. But those are big keys because, you look at last year, Trev, and Horvath went off. They only had 14 points. Why? Because Teska had 33 yards on 12 carries. Dabo Fofana had 4 yards on 2 carries. We just talked about how 2 years before that, he dominated Notre Dame. Navy scored 3 points in the 2023 matchup. Dabo Fofana led him in rushing with 56 yards. We did it on 15 carries. Alex Teska had 38 yards on 8 carries. So their fullbacks combined for 104 yards or 94 yards. They did that on 23 carries in that game. So, it's not rocket science, dude. It's not always as easy to stop as it is to tell you how to stop it. But that's what they get paid 7 figures to do. That's what this guy's getting paid 7 figures to do. So, and that's going to be the key. And if Notre Dame can do that, 2021, their fullback in that game had 73 yards rushing, but he did it on 22 carries. Those are things that you do, Trev. You handle those things, and you will shut Navy down. It's easy to say, not always easy to do. Some final thoughts from you, Trev, on this defensive game plan, because it's interesting to talk about this team. I think sometimes playing a triple option team can hurt you because it gets you out of rhythm. But I also think sometimes playing a triple option team can be very eye-opening for your players. Like, hey, guys, it's going to look different schematically, but this is what it can look like against a normal team when everybody just does their job. Like, it can be a lesson learned for a defense. Hey, if 11 guys all do what they're supposed to do, we're pretty hard to move the ball on. We're pretty hard to score on. And then maybe we can apply that to other looks as well.
Yeah, this game is going to come down to focus because, like we've talked about, Navy can go for 2, 1, -1, 2, 9, 50, 1, 2, 4, 2, 45. And that's just something that they're going to have to limit. Excuse me. A lot of the takeaways aren't going to be from the stat sheet in this game. But Notre Dame has the opportunity to do what they did last year and shut down this offense. If they remain aggressive and if they follow the keys that we have laid out, I think that they're going to have a very successful night against Navy on Saturday. Right now, FanDuel has their over-under point total at 14.5, which I thought was interesting. But based on what Notre Dame's defense has really done the last couple of weeks, I understand why it is where it is. And so we're going to find out what takes today. It's going to be really exciting to watch Notre Dame's rush defense as a unit versus Navy's rush offense. That's going to be fun to watch as well. But yes, there's a lot of different takeaways that you can have when your team plays Navy, not necessarily looking at the numbers. Context always matters. Context will always matter. But folks, that's going to do it for part 3 of today's show. Don't go anywhere. We're getting ready for our daily mailbag, which will take us home for today's show. But before we get there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel, whatever streaming platform you listen to us on. We would greatly, greatly appreciate a 5-star review. As always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. FanDuel.com. All right, Brian, to wrap up today's show here in the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, we have a mailbag to take us home. And again, we didn't get to do one yesterday after the college football playoff ranking, so I've already seen some of them come through. We got some playoff questions in there, some Navy questions in there. If you want your question answered, put a little mailbag, MB for mailbag, or a mailbox emoji that lets us know to set the question aside. Then if you want your question bumped to the top, because reality of the situation is Brian and I can't go forever. So if you want to make sure that you get your question answered, you can always put in a super chat and that'll get bumped up to the top. But we already have a lot of awesome questions in there, Brian.
Let's get rocking and rolling. We'll start off with T-Guns.
How do you guys think the playoff metrics should be ordered from most to least important?
I don't know that I would have a least but most important metric necessarily, Tommy. I think you have a collection of data that you have to weigh. The deeper the season goes on, certainly certain things matter. The only time that I think something should be ordered most important is if there's something that's significantly greater than maybe another team. So, you're looking at this team and there's a lot of data that's very similar to another team, but this team has something that's really egregiously bad or something that's really impressively good. And you say, okay, well, we're going to use that. Head to head should be very important, but it shouldn't be an end all be all, right? Like, it just depends on what the overall resumes are. I advocated for two teams that lost the head to head that should have been ranked ahead of the team that they lost to. I argued that for Louisville against Virginia, and I also argued that for Notre Dame against Miami. The committee agreed with me on one of them. So, Tommy, I don't think it's important, or I don't think it's wise to rank. Here's the 10 criteria we use. Here's the most important, second most important, third. They should all be kind of taken in line to come to one conclusion. And then, because like you're going to look at it and say, okay, well, these four most important things are kind of the same. So we may have to go to some deeper things. Some things are pretty obvious. I don't need to get to points 7, 8, 9, 10 because, 5 through 10, because 1 through 4 aren't even close, But what if 1 through 4 aren't close, but 5 through 10 aren't close to the other direction? You know what I mean? Then it's like, okay, well, you need to take the whole picture into account. And I've always advocated for that.
Yeah, the issue with doing that, Tommy, is not all conferences are created equal. So, like, let's just say for this hypothetical argument, the playoff committee wanted to put, your strength of schedule or quality wins as the number one metric. Well, that's going to carry a lot more weight in the SEC than it is in the ACC. It just is. I mean, this year it'll carry a lot more weight in the SEC than it will in the Big Ten. You can't control who you play, and you can't control how good your opponents are. You can only control how you beat them. And I think that's why, to Brian's point, you don't have like a number one thing that you look for, because not all conferences are created equally. So that's a big thing for me. From Irish English, rank the following teams in order of most disappointing seasons: Clemson, Colorado, LSU, Florida.
Clemson 1, Florida 2, LSU 3, Colorado 4. I put LSU behind Florida because I think LSU is, still 5-3. Like, Florida was not ranked as high as LSU preseason. I didn't expect them to be as good as LSU. I didn't expect them to be 3-5 at this point in time. So that's how I would rank that one. I mean, we kind of thought Colorado was going to struggle this year, Trev. I think they're probably a little bit worse than I thought they were going to be, but we're talking about degrees of bad. But nobody's been more disappointing this year than Clemson.
No, I would go, my order would be Clemson, LSU, Florida, Colorado. I predicted Colorado to not be bowl eligible this season when we were doing our Big 12 reviews. So anything that I've watched happen with Colorado this season hasn't surprised me in the slightest. So, yeah, but Clemson, by far, runaway favorite, is the most disappointing.
Yep.
Tommy Guns, do you think it would be better if the playoff committee didn't put out weekly rankings and everyone just found out on Selection Sunday if and where they're seated?
No, number one, I think that's less entertaining, and this is still entertainment. It is. Football's never been about life and death. It's never been about, the winner of this game, our country overtakes your country, or our state gets control over your state. It's a football game. It's entertainment. And things like this are fun, number one. Number two, practically speaking, you need people to have an idea of where are we? How are we viewed? What do I need to do in this football game to do that. So, no, I don't think that. I don't think that at all. I think this gives you a good gauge on who teams are. Because then at the end of the year, you have this arbitrary discussion on, well, who looks better. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's any fun either. So I like rankings. I want them to be done well. I want there to be transparency behind what they're doing. But yes, I think it's important for you to release them every week. I honestly what I've advocated for is I think they should go deeper than 25. You only announce the 25 that in the show, but you should release your top 40, because I've always been annoyed by, well, we got a top 25 win. Yeah, but you beat number 25. We beat number 26. Like, why does yours carry this giant weight that, I'd go 35, 40 is what I would release publicly. I wouldn't do it I don't need to see ESPN release who's number 40 and all that, but the committee could release that after the fact. Where do the G5 teams rank in this poll? That'd be good to know. I think that'd be important. So yeah, I don't think that. I wouldn't advocate for that at all.
No, I would hate it, if I'm being honest. I just spent the last 2 weeks talking about how I wish I just knew where Notre Dame was seated. If I had to wait another month to find that out, not a chance. I filed this under the same, and T-Guns, this isn't a shot at you, but I filed this under the, let's just get rid of the AP rankings now that the CFP rankings are the only thing that matters come November. I like the rankings. It gives you a gauge. It gives you a baseline.
Yep.
From Coleman Smith, are we in closing period for the Von Brandt recruitment this weekend?
Possible. It's possible. I don't know that it's a given, but if he has a great visit, it's possible. Yeah, they've done a great job since he decommitted from Penn State of getting in on him. That's a 2027 offensive lineman that'll be visiting, and we'll have a full list of visitors here next day or so. But there'll be a decent list this weekend too.
From Tristan 1776, I asked this on the board and agree with those who put their input, but I want yours. Was the IU at Oregon road win better than a Texas A&M at Notre Dame?
Wasn't for me, because I think Notre Dame's better than Oregon. I think it was better for the program. I think Indiana getting that win had way more impact on their overall program than Texas A&M beating Notre Dame. But if I'm taking your Tristan, your question referring more to the college football playoff, no, I think the Texas A&M win over Indiana was a better win as far as the quality opponent. Where I would give Indiana credit more than A&M is, I think Indiana was more dominant in their win over Oregon than Texas A&M was in Notre Dame, which was, there were periods of time against Notre Dame where Texas A&M was down double digits. Indiana controlled that whole game. I mean, from start to finish, they were just a better team. So again, but this goes back to what I'm talking about, Trev. This is why you can't just have an arbitrary surface level, this team's better than that team, so it was a better win for Texas A&M. If you want me to give you a very surface level answer with no depth, A&M beating Notre Dame, to me, is more impressive than Indiana beating Oregon with no context whatsoever, because I think Notre Dame's better than Oregon. What's the better win in regard to quality of opponent and how well you played? Indiana. It's a better, because they were more dominant over Oregon than A&M was over Notre Dame. So even though I think A&M beat the better team, I think Indiana looked better beating a team that, and when I say better, it's like I'd have Notre Dame 9 and Oregon 10 or 11 or 12. It's close. But I thought Indiana was just the better team that day. A&M's defense had major problems that day. And they got benefited from some bad, officiating no calls, and Notre Dame muffed the field goal that had nothing to do with Texas A&M. So I just think Indiana, it was a more impressive win than the A&M win over Notre Dame. But they're both great wins.
Yeah, it's same page here. We see that the same. USMA 87, thoughts on the stark difference in strength of schedule between the SEC and the Big Ten? I mean, it kind of goes back to what we talk about and what we have talked about really the last 3 Thursdays. Just a big contrast between, the SEC slate week in and week out and the Big Ten slate week in and week out. I think it's very evident. I mean, in Big Ten games, you got, big noon kickoff going to the number 1 team in the country for Ohio State playing a 3-4 football team that is yet to beat a Power 4 opponent. In the SEC, you get Oklahoma, Tennessee, you get Ole Miss, Georgia, you get all these different games. You get Alabama, Missouri ranked matchups. I mean, there are impactful ranked matchups every single week in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State, really Oregon probably has the toughest remaining schedule in the top three of the Big Ten. They still have Iowa. They have USC. I think Oregon also still has to go play at Washington. Or I think they play Washington at some point. I mean, Ohio State's only tough opponent remaining is Michigan. And I don't think Indiana plays a single ranked opponent left in their season. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
So, real quick, Oregon plays at Iowa, home against Minnesota, home against USC, at Washington. To your point, Indiana the rest of the way plays at Penn State, home against Wisconsin, at Purdue. So they don't have anybody good left. Texas A&M the rest of the way has at Missouri, home against South Carolina, home against Stanford, at Texas. So even though I do believe that right now Indiana should be ahead of Oregon, for example, ahead of A&M right now, I may not feel that way by the end of the regular season when you have the entirety of Texas A&M's resume to look at if they remain 12-0. To your point, Trevor, we're on the same page. The SEC is having their best teams play good schedules. The Big Ten has padded the schedules of their perceived top teams. Now, that's just not arguable. I mean, if we're being honest, that's not really arguable. They've tried to make their top teams have easier paths. SEC's not doing that because the SEC cares about preparing teams to go win a championship. The Big Ten doesn't. Now, it's worked out well for the Big Ten the last 2 years, but it makes for a lot of bad football. And that's one of the many reasons I despise Tony Petitti. Many reasons. There's always a bit of a SEC bias to strength of schedule anyway, but in this case, this year, it's very valid.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just you go and look at two of the teams at the bottom of the Big Ten. Wisconsin this year, talking about padding the schedules for their perceived top teams. Wisconsin in 1 year had to play Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Indiana. Purdue in 1 year had to play Illinois, Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, Indiana. They also played USC. It's just not even close. The teams with the hardest schedule in the Big Ten are in the bottom part of the Big Ten. It's just what it is. It's a stark difference, to your point, USMA, between the SEC and the Big Ten. Guns and Rosas, what do you think the stats and progression look like if you swap Sand and Carr? Just a fun hypothetical.
I think probably there'd be better passing numbers at Ohio State, better quarterback run numbers at Notre Dame. They're both really good quarterbacks, but I think Julian would you'd probably see Denbrock use him to run a little bit more. On some read zone stuff and scrambles. I don't think he'd throw as well as CJ, and CJ would throw better for Ohio State, but not make some of the scramble plays and plays with his legs that Julian is making. Not that he does a ton, but I think you'd see him do that more at Notre Dame. That's why I think CJ would be better in the Ohio State offense. I think Julian would even be more effective in the Notre Dame offense, but I still think CJ is the better player, and I'm glad that Notre Dame got him. Smart decision by Tommy Rees, because Julian Sand would have committed to Notre Dame if he didn't want CJ Carr instead.
Yeah. Some of it, too, is just the tools that you have to pass to. I love Notre Dame's receiving core. But I think whatever quarterback has Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate will naturally, playing in that system especially, will just put up bigger numbers. That's just the nature of the beast. Another one from USMA 87. Should Notre Dame try to get Deuce Knight from Auburn, or has that ship sailed?
Heck no. I have no problem at Deuce. He had his chance to come to Notre Dame. He missed it. They got Blake Hebert. They've already got Noah Grubbs in 26, and they've got Teddy Gerard in 27. They're fine. I'm not taking a raw quarterback who has a year of no development at Auburn. Pass.
Christopher Hardy, do you think that Ash will challenge Navy to be able to throw, or will he be balanced in playing to stop the run and the pass?
No, I don't think it's about balance. You can't look at it that way with Navy. It's a very different way of looking at Navy. It's about you've got to have a game plan that has assignment. You got to do this. You got to do that. It's about discipline, overall discipline. It's not about, hey, we're going to do things to try to force Navy to throw a football.
Yep.
Because if you do things like that, you know, it may work, but you also may get gashed. And you can't force Navy to throw. It's not a given that on 2nd and 13 that they're going to throw the football. So no, it's about just knowing your job, dominating the point of attack, and like I said, play within the system and do it fast.
Tristan, you randomly run into Coach Denbrock at the grocery store and asks you for your best opening drive play. What do you tell him?
I mean, against Navy, first play of the game, I'm running the ball down their throat, and then I'm going play action for a big play on play 2.
Assuming you need a play 2.
Yeah. Well, you'd have a play 2. It just may be the next series.
All right, smart guy.
Yeah. I'm just saying. I think they're going to run more than one play in this game.
Yeah. Best opening drive.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about.
No, I'm just messing with you, buddy. It's all good.
I'm just messing with you too, buddy.
You got to put a little bit more bass in your voice when you respond.
I'm sorry. Play 2, maybe.
Yeah, that would be what I do. I want to set a tone early. Now, if they are going to load the box, then okay, I may check out of it and take a shot. But yeah, I don't want to run a play action deep shot on play 1 because I think Navy's going to bring a lot on that first play, and I don't want the first play of the game to potentially be a 6-yard loss on a sack.
James Mertz, if Notre Dame gets a comfortable enough lead in these last 4 games, do you think Jadon Blair will get on the field?
I hope so. He needs to. I've heard he's doing really well in practices, but we'll see. I think he's a talented player, and I think he needs to get a chance to play.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. So all
I would be surprised if he doesn't get a little bit in those moments.
I unfortunately wouldn't be. The kid's not even playing on special teams.
He has been in the 2 deep on special teams the last few games though. So even though he didn't travel, so he has been getting work on special teams. I think a lot of it just came down to they wanted him to redshirt and get some distance between him and Tay and him and Adon. I really think that's a lot of it. So I think about 2 weeks ago, I heard that he was getting some 2 work with the special teams. So it's getting closer.
From Salty, which 3 coaches currently have the hottest seats? They are clearing the ranks quickly now.
Well, Salty, I don't know, Trev. If you know of anybody, I don't know who has a hot seat now. I mean, it's because
Luke Fickell's got to be at the top of that.
It should be but I hear a lot of things that Wisconsin has no desire to fire him. That's what I was going to say was here's who I think should have the 3 hottest seats, and Luke Fickell's absolutely in that conversation for me. Obviously you've seen a lot of the guys whose seats are pretty hot that have been fired. I mean, I'll just kind of go through some of them. Mike Norvell needs to have a really hot seat right now. I think Bill O'Brien needs to have a really hot seat right now. I think Jonathan Smith has a little bit his seat. I don't know if I'd say it's hot right now, but it's certainly warming up. There's no doubt about that. Mark Stoops should absolutely have a hot seat right now. That team continues to be disappointing. And then I don't know that I'd say he should have a hot seat right now, but I think Shane Beamer's seat should at least be warming up a little bit.
Agreed.
This year's been a complete waste.
Mm-hmm.
They have a dynamic quarterback, one of the best young edge rushers in the country, a world-class sprinter at wide receiver that they don't know how to use. It's not good.
Another one from Salty. Will Lane Kiffin take the Florida or LSU head coaching job? And should he?
My answer is I don't know and no. I don't know if he'll take one of those jobs. Should he? I wouldn't. I think he's in a pretty good place. right now. Now he would know more about the inner workings of how supportive are they of him, how supportive they are of the program, things like that. But Florida is a great job in theory, but it hasn't been a great job in a while because there's just terrible leadership. I think they just announced the new president at LSU like yesterday. Florida still, I don't think, has a school president. Like there's some mess going on at those places. So if I were to take one of the two, I'd probably take the Florida job just because I think the bar's lower initially. So you have a little bit more time to kind of tear it down and build it back up. Where if at LSU, they're going to expect you to come in and win right away. And that's fine, but I would probably take the Florida job. But if I were him, and so if I can only take one of the two, I'd take Florida. But if you ask me what I would do if I was in his shoes, I'd stay at Ole Miss. As long as he feels he's got support there, I'd stay at Ole Miss.
Shoot, I would too. I mean, Ole Miss is already, in my eyes, past Florida and LSU in the SEC power rankings. In recent years?
Yeah, in recent years, sure. I think still with the right coach, those two are both better jobs in theory than him. But part of this is about longevity too, Trev. It's about, do you value your quality of life? I think being in Oxford's a little bit more of a pace that Lane Kiffin needs as opposed to some of the bigger cities, you know what I mean? With more distractions, but also Lane Kiffin is the 10th highest paid coach in college football right now. And I mean, Brian Kelly made more than him, but it was 1.4 million more. That's it. No, I'm sorry, 1.175 million more than him. So, I mean, he makes as much as Josh Heupel. He made more than Billy Napier. He's got a pretty good job already. I'd stay. And they showed last year they'll spend money on NIL if he.
Acupuncture. I wonder if we're actually hearing the truth about Greathouse. Is it possible that he's trying to transfer?
I honestly don't know. I don't even want to speculate on that. I've heard different things from different people. Some people say yes, some people say no. At the end of the day, I honestly don't know. I mean, look, I could say the actions we've seen from him would support that he's going to transfer. I can make the same case that the actions from him support the fact that he's going to get fully healthy the regular season, come back for the playoffs, redshirt, so he still has 2 more years in Notre Dame after Will Pauling and Malachi Fields leave. Like, there's a lot of different ways I could spin this. I could say that he's genuinely just hurt, and there's nothing more to it than that. I don't know. I have my thoughts of what I think it means that he's still out off this time, but I just want to be careful publicly saying, yep, I think he's going to try transfer, because his body language during games does not look like a guy that's wanting to leave the program. That doesn't mean it's the case. If he's told the staff he's going to leave the program, I doubt they'd let him kind of be around the team the way they are. They didn't do that with other guys in the past that have done that. So I don't know. All I can go by is what we're being told. And that's publicly, but then also privately. My best source on this subject, meaning best source, meaning closest to the situation, said that he's planning on coming back this year. Just they want to make sure he's healthy. Which, if we were to take out, let's pretend that the transfer thing wasn't a deal. So let's say that the transfer rule was what it used to be. We'd be sitting here saying, but the playoff is the way that it is now. We'd be saying, hey, look, man, you can beat Navy and without Jaden Greathouse. You need to make sure he gets fully healthy, because when you get to the playoff, you're going to need him to make a run. Then we'd be saying, you know what? Be cautious with him. But because of the way that the game is now, that kids sit out and transfer and all that, when a kid has an injury that we perceive to be one that shouldn't have him out as long, it's natural and understandable that there's going to be speculation like this. There it is. And I'd be lying to you if I said it hasn't crossed my mind. But when you're looking for a formal statement from Irish Breakdown, the answer is we don't know, and I don't really care to guess. We'll find out soon enough. If he plays another game in the regular season, he's not redshirting. If he doesn't, then you could probably draw some pretty fair conclusions from that one. And I think that's the best way to put it. I want to get your thoughts on this one, Trevor, from Salty Virginia Peanuts, because I talked a lot about it last night. Which team is most overranked in the CFP rankings?
Gosh, overranked? I think
Take
you can make
Tennessee out.
Yeah.
Because we both think they should not be ranked at all. But take them out. Other than that, who is the most overranked team in the CFP rankings?
Mine is a tie. Mine's a tie between Oregon and Utah, because I think you have to look at, okay, regardless of what you think the top metric is or what you think the top metric should be, what is it that Utah or Oregon have done this season to be ranked inside of, the top 13? I don't know what that answer is. And those are the two teams that I could argue, I think other teams have the strongest cases to be above them. Other teams, it's real granular. Like, you could argue IU over Ohio State if you wanted. I think it's kind of a pointless argument. You could argue who should be above who, like Louisville, Virginia, or, Vandy, Georgia Tech, sure. But I think that there are a lot of teams that have a strong case to be ranked above Utah. You go and you look at so far what they've done this year. Their wins are over Cincinnati, who the committee doesn't think high enough about them to rank them. They beat Colorado, along with like 8 other teams that have done that so far this season. They beat Wyoming, Cal Poly, UCLA, West Virginia, Arizona State when they didn't have Sam Leavitt. He was hurt and out that game. Then you lost to the 2 best teams that you played. I don't really understand why Utah is the 13th ranked team in the playoffs. And then Oregon, that one kind of speaks for itself. They don't have a ranked win. They're hanging their hat on beating Penn State in Happy Valley in a whiteout.
Their best win is Northwestern.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't really understand Oregon being that high. I think they're just going off of, they made the playoffs last year and they're the returning Big Ten champs, and that's it.
How's their resume better than Virginia or Louisville's, other than just the O on the helmet?
Agreed.
Like, I don't understand that. Like, I don't understand that.
Yep.
The computers love them. They're third in the FPI, third in the FEI, third in the Sagarin, and 6th in the Massey ratings. I don't get it. Don't get it.
I got nothing.
They dominate crap teams. That's what I think people love.
Yeah. Kind of.
Agree with you on Utah.
Yeah, Penn State's a crap team. They didn't dominate them.
Well, I mean, just like you look at, like, they've got a 60-point win over Rutgers, a 60-point win over Oklahoma State. Yeah.
Which team is the most underranked in the CFP rankings?
I'd probably argue Miami. I don't think a lot of teams are very underranked. I think that a couple overrated teams should drop, and then everybody else should just kind of go up a spot. I don't really have any, wow, this team is super underranked, other than Miami. I think Miami should be 3 or 4 spots higher. I think they should be ahead of Virginia. I think they should be ahead of Utah. I would argue they should be ahead of Vanderbilt. Just my opinion. I mean, but they're not way, way off, in my opinion. So I think Miami's probably got the biggest beef for being too low.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have a beef that they should be ahead of Notre Dame or Texas.
Wayne Miller, why did Pauling become the number 1 receiver?
He didn't. At no point in time has he ever been the number 1 receiver. Are there times where he maybe gets targeted a little bit more because teams are focusing on Malachi Fields or Eli Raridan or Jordan Faison, or just you can't cover everybody? Sure. But at no point in time has Will Pauling ever been the number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
That's not a knock on him. It's just not reality.
Nope. He's not number 1 in targets, receptions, or yards.
Yep.
Another one from Salty. Why has Wisconsin done so badly under Luke Fickell?
Because he's an overrated coach whose entire career at Cincinnati was built on him making great hires and those people carrying the program, and he hasn't been able to replicate those hires at Wisconsin. He hired Mike Denbrock at Cincinnati as his OC, hired Marcus Freeman as his DC, had Mike Mickens as his DB coach, had
crazy coaching staff.
Yeah, had Brian Mason on his staff. held out Washington on staff for a year, had hired, let Marcus hire Chad Bowden and let him be the recruiter for the defense. And those guys drove the program, and they've never been the same since they all left. And then he, instead of, his Mike Denbrock at Wisconsin was Phil Longo, right? And was just a terrible fit, terrible hire. And he hasn't recovered from that. And I don't think he's the recruiter he thinks he is. I think he thinks he's a real good recruiter because of all the success they had at Cincinnati, when in reality it wasn't about you. I think they recruited in spite of you. I'm not high on Luke Fickell at all, as you can tell. He's a very good coach.
Yeah. I mean, some of it at Wisconsin, too. I agree with everything that you said. Some of it at Wisconsin, too, is they got away from their identity of what made them good. They tried to run.
Because of his hire of an air raid OC. Exactly.
Yep. Wisconsin has been at its best when they are a pro-style offense that tries to establish a ground game.
And you lost 2 years of recruiting to the proper offense.
Mm-hmm.
Just makes it harder to just go back to it. I just don't think he's a very good coach. I think he's a very overrated coach. Kudos to him for making great hires at Cincinnati. But that also benefited from the fact that Purdue and Notre Dame fired Marcus Freeman and Mike Denbrock as well.
Another one from Christopher Hardy. If the defense plays to its potential, what kind of stat line should we see from the Navy offense?
If they play to its potential, you should see 17 or less points. You should see 225 or fewer rushing yards, and you should see 75 or fewer passing yards.
Couple of turnovers.
Yep.
USMA 87. We are now in the redshirt window. 4 games left. Do you expect to see some younger players get snaps based on that?
Yes. Yeah, I do. Especially some of the guys that have played in a game or two already. Yeah, I think we'll see that.
Agreed. Super chat from Michael S. Thank you, Michael. Concern is that Navy will play keep away the way Boston College did, 11 minutes in one drive, which it does very well. What are your thoughts?
I don't agree with that. I don't think this Navy team does that. This Navy team is capable of that, but that's not who this team has been. This has been more of a big play offense. Look, in the past, Navy's always top 5 in time of possession, right? They haven't been that way the last couple of years. So they were 67th in the country last year in time of possession. They're 24th in time of possession this year. So no, that they haven't really been that kind of team. They're more of an explosive big play team. 2022, before the new coach came in, they were second in college in time of possession. The year before that, they were 5th. 2019, they were 8th. 2018, they were 8th. 2017, they were 1st. 2016, they were 39th. And that was what was different about that 2016 team. They threw the ball, and they were a big play offense with Woolworth and Jamar Tillman. But since their head coach came in, and they've been 43rd in time of possession. They've been 67th in time of possession. This year, they're 24th in time of possession. So I don't necessarily agree that that's what they want to be. They can be, but that's their goal. I don't think Navy looks at it the same way. I think they want to score. This offense wants to score. And so, you haven't seen Newberry have the same sort of handcuffs on the offense. Hey, we just want to shorten games. I think they want to go out there and score.
Oh, 100%. You said they had, 10 plays of 50 yards or more in 8 games?
Yeah. You're not throwing the ball more because you want to control the clock all day. You're throwing the ball more because you're going to be more balanced and be more explosive. So, but yeah, that's always a concern when you're playing an option team if you're not disciplined. Certainly. I could see them maybe wanting to do more of that in this game.
Yeah.
But I honestly think they're smart enough to know that if we're going to win this game, we got to score. We're not going to win this game 24-17.
Super chat from Tyler Evans. Thank you, Tyler. Who do you believe will play for the ACC championship? And what was your biggest takeaway nationally after Saturday?
Boy, I'd probably say right now, Virginia and Louisville. mean, look, Miami's got 2 conference losses now. Georgia Tech has 1, but they got to play Pitt. I don't know what the tiebreakers are with Georgia Tech, Louisville, and Virginia. I have no idea. But right now, Virginia's undefeated in the league. And, while they're certainly capable of losing another game, they only have 3 games left. And they got to play Wake at home, Virginia Tech at home, and at Duke. They may lose the Duke game, but if they lose that game, that's still only their first conference loss. So and then they have the head-to-head over Louisville. So if Louisville, Georgia Tech, and Virginia all have 1 loss, I would imagine that Virginia would be in over Louisville. Now it comes down to Louisville versus Georgia Tech. And they don't play each other. So Louisville probably has a little bit of a tougher road because they got to play Clemson, who can sneak up on you. Louisville has 4 games left, but they only have 3 conference games left because their last game is against Kentucky. And so they lose by 50 to Kentucky and it won't have any impact on their ACC championship bid. So right now, I'd say probably, Louisville and Virginia, whereas Georgia Tech, Trev, they've got to still play Pitt. And they got one other tough game. We were talking about that the other day, I believe, not just the Georgia game. Don't they have a second? No. They only have 2 ACC games left at BC and home against Pitt. Their last regular season game is against Georgia. So, right now, without knowing the particulars of the head-to-heads, I'd probably say Virginia and Louisville.
I'm going to go.
SMU still only has, 1 conference loss? Right? So they're not out of it yet either, I don't think. Because they've got SMU 3 losses, but they lost to Baylor and TCU.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting.
As of today, I'm probably going to go Georgia Tech, Virginia. I think Louisville, of those 3, between Georgia Tech, Virginia, and Louisville, I think Louisville has the most opportunity for stumbling blocks left in the ACC. I think Cal's a quality team in the ACC. They're 5-4, 2-3 in the conference. Like you said, Clemson could sneak up on you, and then Louisville still has at SMU, who only has 1 conference loss. So I think that's a little bit more of a tricky road than what Georgia Tech has. They have at Boston College and then home against Pitt. And then Virginia, like you said, they're still undefeated in conference, so they can still suffer a loss. And I don't even know if they're going to get that because they're home against Wake Forest, home against Virginia Tech, on the road against Duke. Right. So I'm going to go Virginia, Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Super chat from Tyler Evans. Thank you, Tyler. What do you think of the Auburn? What do you think of the Auburn home and home series in 27 and 28? What did you think of the Hugh Freeze firing?
I don't really have. I mean, the Auburn thing happened kind of while we were playing. I don't really see the value in playing Auburn. I don't really care about playing Auburn. I don't hate it. I'm just kind of indifferent. It's a quality opponent. Hopefully, they'll be a quality opponent by then. I don't love the 27-28 schedules that they're putting together. If Auburn does make a good hire right now, but I do wonder about some of the scheduling decisions that they're making, because right now in 2027, you now have Auburn, Michigan State, Purdue, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Clemson, maybe USC. That's not too bad. But then 2028, you're playing Texas, Arkansas, Auburn, at Virginia Tech, Clemson, Miami, and Pitt. Like that's a schedule right there, boy. So 3 SEC opponents. You got to play Miami and Clemson at home. You got to play at Virginia Tech, at Pitt, at Purdue. It's going to be an interesting schedule that year based on what those teams can be. Who knows how good they'll be. So I'm kind of indifferent to it. It's a quality opponent. It makes more sense in 27 than it does 28.
I think it's cool. Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, it's the first time that they've ever played. So I think that's pretty fun.
I could have been okay if they never played. Like, I don't care. Auburn's like a program I'm completely indifferent to.
I mean, I felt that way about Arkansas. It was still cool that they played for the first time.
You know what's funny is the only reason I felt that way about Arkansas is because there's a connection there with Lou Holtz. It's a little bit, you know what I mean? That's what mattered to me. Now, I'll cover the game there. That'll be fun. But, I don't really care about Notre Dame playing them there. So, But I'm also not upset about it either. You know what I mean? Like, it's a true indifference. It's like, all right, let's go cover the game. It's like Ole Miss. I know they've played before, but it's like, I don't care about getting Ole Miss on the schedule. But because it's one of those things, Trevor, I don't know if you get a whole lot of credit for beating Auburn. You know what I mean? It's like and it's kind of the same way with Arkansas. I don't know you get a lot of credit for beating Arkansas.
Sure.
But if you lose to them, that's a lot more problematic. And there's a greater chance you lose to Auburn than you would to Arkansas.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I've accepted the fact that Notre Dame's not going to get credit for beating anybody unless it's one of Georgia, Alabama, or Ohio State. And so, unless you're going to schedule them all the time, I mean,
that's why I like Arkansas better than Auburn, because Arkansas's got less of a chance of beating you.
Salty Virginia Peanut. Should early season non-conference big games results count less than late season big game results?
Depends. I mean, this is the whole problem with this thought process. I don't think it's that simple. I don't think that Miami's loss to Notre Dame or win over Notre Dame is hurting them because it was early in the season. It's not being counted as much because they don't look like that team anymore. That's what the problem is. You know what I mean, Trev? Like, the committee said it. Like, yeah, they had the 2 early losses, but this Notre Dame team is playing way better than they were then. That's what the guy said. And so, like, that's what matters. I mean, Texas is like, I've heard some really dumb arguments. Like, well, you know, Texas shouldn't play Ohio State because if they didn't play Ohio State, they'd be whatever. I'm like, well, that's kind of dumb, because I actually think losing to Ohio State by a touchdown is helping Texas's strength of schedule right now, as opposed to playing another, you know, Texas team that stinks that they could blow out. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, maybe you're one spot higher. Maybe. I don't think it's a given that if Texas at 8-1 with their schedule and you replace Ohio State with, I don't know, who'd have they play Sam Houston, they played UTEP, UTSA necessarily all of a sudden means that they're going to jump Notre Dame. I don't know that that's necessarily true. Maybe it does, but it wouldn't matter in a week and a half anyway when Alabama beat you. Like, the goal should be to play teams that help you get better throughout the year and help challenge you and help improve you as a program. And as you and I've talked about this before, there's been teams that start the season off 2-3 wins and you feel good about yourself, but you're like, yeah, but you've got problems. They just haven't been exposed yet. Where Notre Dame's problems got exposed in games 1 and game 2. And then they got the next 10 games to fix it. Well, what about those teams whose problems don't get exposed till games 10 and 11? You know what I mean? So there's a lot more reasons for that.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, look at Miami. They didn't leave the state of Florida until November 1st. And what happened in their first game on the road? They lost.
Right.
I mean, that stuff matters. I mean, so Salty, I agree with Brian wholeheartedly, man. I mean, it depends on what your situation is, really. It's subjective. Right. It's not the same across the board.
USC in 2016. It's not that they started 1-3 and just won the rest of their games. It's they were a very different team at the end of the season in November. And what I mean by that is not just that they were playing better. They had a different quarterback. They had made other personnel changes. It was a very different football team. And that stuff matters. People get so narrow-minded with the stuff when it hurts their team. But the people that are making the same arguments now will be the same ones using the same arguments next year as to defend why Texas is a spot ahead of Notre Dame with the same record. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, look, here's the reality of it. If Miami didn't lose to SMU, they'd be ranked ahead of Notre Dame right now. They're not punished because that game was early in the year. They're punished because right now, the last month of the season, they've kind of playing like booty. That's why. Here's a thought. Don't go on the road and lose to a team that's not ranked. I have some guy on Twitter is trying to argue with me saying that the Notre Dame loss to Miami is comparable to Texas's loss to Florida. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. You know, but like, so people will just say things, but if you're really trying to look at it, I don't think the committee's punishing Miami because they beat Notre Dame early. If Miami was started the season 1-2 with losses to SMU and Louisville, but then went on a roll and had beat Notre Dame last week, they'd be ranked higher. Why? Because they're trending in a good direction. Not necessarily because of when the game's played, but because of how they're playing right now.
Yeah, that's the delicate balance that you have to walk. especially when you're the committee. Yes, you have to evaluate everything, but also you have to have a healthy conversation around the team in September that you were at that time might not be the team that you're going to be in the playoffs, for better or for worse. And right now we're talking about a Miami team that lost 2 of their last 3 games, both to unranked opponent. Well, Louisville's ranked, but that's fact of the matter. And so a lot of people, it's recency bias. It's like, but it's also the trend. You also can't ignore it. Like, you have to have both. Like, that's the evaluation of everything, all encompassing.
And we're not saying that we're not agreeing with you, Salty. I disagree that we're agreeing with you. What we're saying is how you're playing when the rankings are decided matters.
Yep. That's
if Miami doesn't lose to SMU, they're ranked way higher because of the week 1 win over Notre Dame. They didn't lose in a big game. They lost to a team that was not ranked.
Yep.
So they would have gotten all the credit in the world if they would have beat SMU for the win over Notre Dame. They'd be chalking the Louisville game up to like they're doing with a lot of other teams who have one bad loss. Well, I know they lost that game, but look at what else they're doing.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. And look, Miami lost 2 games in November last year, got left out. So, like, here's the thought: stop losing games to teams that aren't very good. I mean, they're in the I shouldn't care about what you did in week 1 when you go 0-3 at the end of the season. Just like I don't care how well you're playing at the big end of the year. If you go 0-3 to start your season, you're not going to be ranked ahead of a team that's that's the reality of it. Because even in 2016, I've used USC as an example. They were one of the 2-3 best teams in college football in 2016 by the end of the year. They were ranked like 8th or 9th. Because you can only overcome that to a certain degree because those games still counted. If they didn't count those games early in the year, then USC probably makes the college football playoffs that year. In 2016, that USC team was way better than Michigan State. I mean, Washington made it that year. That's 2015. Michigan State made it. Washington made it in 2016, and USC beat them by 2 touchdowns late in the year.
Yep.
So what mattered more, the late season game or the early season game for USC? Well, the late season game didn't matter as much for USC is in regard to them being over Washington or where they ranked. They were still punished by what they did early in the season when they started 1-3, lost to Utah, Stanford, and of course got spanked by Alabama. But by the end of the year, that USC team could have played with anybody, just about anybody, except just about anybody.
Yeah.
So it's your entire resume, but how you're playing now should matter.
That's why we were so up in arms about Notre Dame's really poor performance against Boston College. That was your last chance to make an impression on the committee before they came out with their rankings. And the last impression Miami put out there was they've lost SMU. It's some of that stuff, Brian, like you said, some of it's just not that hard to figure out. From I5IK turn. I don't know if those are ones or I's or L's.
or lowercase L's.
Yeah. From 5K turn. There we go. Who has a better chance to pull off an upset this Saturday? BYU, Iowa, or Missouri?
Oh, well, I know who the other 2 teams play. Who does Missouri play this weekend, Trev? Do you know who they play?
No, I'm looking right now.
Let me look it up. Missouri
plays Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. I'm putting Missouri, and they're at home against Texas A&M. Iowa plays Oregon at home. BYU plays at Texas Tech. I'm gonna put BYU. Man, that's because they just find ways to win, dude. I thought they were gonna get beat by Texas Tech or Iowa State a couple weeks ago. You got some immediate thoughts on this, Trev? I think Iowa. I would say, let's see. Honestly, because quarterback for Missouri still out, right?
Yeah, Bo Prabula's out for the year.
Yeah, that Missouri's at the bottom of that list. They're a different team without their. They looked garbage when they lost him, and Sam Horn's also out. He was their number 2 quarterback. He got hurt in the opener, so I'm pretty sure that I'm correct on that. I don't think Sam Horn has played. Yeah, Sam Horn hasn't played since the opener, so they're going to turn their offense over to a true freshman, Matt Zollers, who's a nice player, but he's a true freshman. So I'll put Missouri at the bottom of the list. I'm going to put BYU at the top just because that team knows how to win. I still don't have a lot of faith that Iowa can score enough points. Iowa could hold Oregon to 17 points and lose.
Yeah. Yep. Do you know what Texas Tech is favored by in that BYU game on FanDuel?
6.5.
10.5.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the other ones for these other two games?
I just
Iowa,
looked.
Oregon?
Yeah. Yep. So Iowa, Oregon is, let me find it. Oregon is favored by 6.5 on the road. And then Texas A&M is favored by 6.5 on the road against Missouri.
So basically, it's about it. Top 10 team against the top 20 to 25 team.
Yeah. I just can't believe the spread in the BYU Texas Tech game. That's interesting.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, when Baron Morton's played, they haven't really played in any competitive games.
No, so I get it. Yeah. Super chat from
I just think people still look at BYU as a little bit of a smoke and mirrors team. And they're going to need a game like this, even if they lose, but in a great 4-quarter game.
Yeah.
Because I think people still look at BYU and they see the team that needed overtime to beat Arizona. You know, like I think there's a lot of those things that have happened that make people just not certain of them. I kind of look at the opposite way. I say that team finds ways to win. They needed to hang on late to beat Colorado on the road. They're not very good. They beat Utah by 3 points. You know, like their only great win so far this year is smacking Iowa State out. Iowa State, but even in that game, they were down, I think, double digits at one point in time, weren't they, Trev? Wasn't like
I think so.
24-13 or something like that. I have to go look at that box score again real quick. But I do remember they were down in that game and then came back. But then they dominated in the second half. And look, dude, it's a 4-quarter game. You don't get punished for being down 10 points if you ultimately won. You know, like Notre Dame should be ranked ahead of A&M. Why? Because they were up by 10 points in the second quarter. That's not how it works. You know what I mean? Like it's about how you finish. But yeah, it was 17-7 at one point in time. It was 24-10 at one point in time in the second quarter. And then it was 24-17 at halftime. Iowa State was up. And then the second half, BYU outscored them 24-3 in Ames. So I get it. They win ugly, but they find ways to win. I'm going with Texas Tech this weekend. But I would still give BYU the best chance of those three teams. If Iowa had an average offense, I would put them at the top.
Yeah. From Angelo Bertelli. Thank you for the super chat. How do you guys feel about starting the season with 1 or 2 tune-up games at the start of the season? I'm cool with 1 tune-up game.
I want 1.
Yep.
That's what I want. I want 1.
Yes. Find the in-between between what Penn State did to start their season and then what Notre Dame did to start their season this year.
I don't want to start the season with Tennessee State. I don't want to start the season with Sam Houston, some team you could just play like garbage and beat by 50.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play a team that's like, okay, that's a solid opponent. You know, like you had to do a little something. You know, thinking of this year's schedule, Boston College, Boise, Navy, Syracuse, NC State, somebody like that, where it's a game you're going to win most likely, but it's not a team that's like kind of close to your level. Then play Miami in week 2.
Yes.
And A&M in week 3. And then have your bye. That I'm fine with that. And if you're going to play those 2 teams in weeks 2 and 3, then give me BC, Syracuse, Stanford, something like that in week 1. If you're going to play one of those teams in week 1, Miami in week 2, BC in week 3, A&M in week 4, then I'm more comfortable with a better team in week 1.
Sure.
That's how I look at it.
From David Giotto. Brian, you spoke passionately about the lack of consistency of the offense, and I couldn't agree more. Where do you think the disconnect is?
David, honestly, I don't know. Well, I really don't, because it's something different every week. And that's what kind of gets frustrating. I can point to and say, there's something in the preparation that's causing this. There's something in the way they're being coached throughout the week that this team consistently shows up without kind of that dog in them, you know. But I can't tell you what it is because I'm not at practice. I can say this is a problem. I can say your third down offense is a problem and you need to get better and offer suggestions. but I can't tell you you're doing this in the week of practice and you need to fix that because I'm not at practice. Like, I don't need to be at practice to know that their design of their run game's not working. Just as in theory. I'm not saying that this is true for this team. I'm just making a point. If your run game is like constantly running into stacked boxes, you're not running to the proper technique, you're always getting overloaded, you have no answers for the backside contain, or the backside crash. And I'd say, dude, your run game is poorly schemed. Well, you're not at practice. Don't need to be. I can watch the games. But what I can't tell you is what is going wrong during the week that's leading to your run game being poorly designed because I'm not at practice. So I can offer solutions based on what I think works, but I can't tell you specifically what you need to do without being at practice. But I can still tell you what the problem is. Like it's like a doctor. A doctor you can go to the doctor's office and they can say, okay, well, you've got the flu. Well, how did I get it? I don't know. What have you been doing the last week? Where have you gone? What have you know what I mean? Who have you been around? Like, they can't tell you necessarily where you got something. I have a broken leg. Well, okay. One of my favorite comedy skits, one of my favorite comedians, Brian Regan. I don't know if you ever watched him. He's hilarious. Ange and I went and saw him live a few years ago, actually, out in Elkhart. But he's got this thing where he goes to the doctor and he's got heartburn. The doctor hands him a list of all the things going to cause heartburn. He's like, I know how to get it. I'm trying to get rid of it. You know what I mean? Like, I know how to get it. But the point is like, I can say, like, look, if you're having trouble here, here's 10 things that could be the problem, but I can't tell you specifically. Whereas if the doctor knew this guy's daily routine every single day, everything he was eating, he'd be able to say, look, man, you're having potato chips at 2:00 at night every night with a big soda, right? That's what people say now, right? Soda, I call it pop. Yeah, that's probably what's causing you to have heartburn at 3:00 in the morning every night. But if you don't know his eating habits and his lifestyle habits, you can say, hey, these are things that cause it. You go evaluate what's going on in your life and say, oh, yeah, that's going on right there. That's what I'm doing wrong. You know what I mean? So I can tell you, hey, your run game is struggling, or your third down offense is struggling, or your red zone offense stinks. And I can say the stuff you're not doing is not working, and here's why it's not working. But I can't tell you, well, here's what you did in practice to cause this.
Yeah, the toughest part, I think you hit it on the head. There's a lack of consistency within their lack of consistency. That's been the head-scratching thing about this team. Is it's not like every week, it's the interior of the offensive line again. It's the tackles again. It's the wide receivers again. It's CJ Carr again. It's something different every single week. And so it's got to be something big picture, whether it's lack of focus for across the board with the unit, or maybe they're putting too much emphasis on one thing throughout the week and not enough throughout another part of the week. It's just, there's no consistency with their lack of consistency, which is tough. Another one from Salty. Should a top 25 team lose to a P5 team? Should the loss count as 2 or 1.5?
It should count as 1.
Yeah.
I think he meant G5 team. It's again, you're trying to put a number on it. It's not so much about a number. It's like, you have a bad loss, we don't. Like, how does that factor into the overall conversation? But yeah, bad losses are part of the metric they look at. Honestly, I feel if Memphis is sitting here at 8-1 and their only loss was against Arkansas by a point at the end of the game, say Arkansas punches in that last drive where they fumbled, I think Memphis is in the top 25. Now, wait a minute. Hold on. They'd have basically the same record the UAB has. Yeah, but it's Arkansas. It's an SEC team. Whereas they lost to UAB, who stinks, who had just fired their coach. Or if their only loss was like the one that Notre Dame has, or Navy has, to North Texas on the road, probably ranked 25th. But you lost to a really bad team, and that's why it hurt you more. So, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the G5 team. Like last year, if Notre Dame would have lost to Purdue, that would have been a worse loss than losing to Northern Illinois, in my opinion. Not from a name standpoint, not from a perception standpoint, but from a football standpoint, Northern Illinois would play Purdue at Purdue and win by 2 touchdowns. Purdue is not good last year. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like this year, I don't know, man.
Oh, no, not this year.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They almost beat NC State also last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a quality football team. Last year, they would have smacked Purdue, in my opinion. They had ran for 250 yards on Purdue.
Yeah, depends on the G5 team. Like if you lose to UAB as a Power 5 team, or like if you're ranked in the top 25, like yeah, that loss is going to weigh heavier. But
yeah,
there's some real bad teams.
If you lose to an FCS team, that should crush it. Well, I mean, depends. What if your FCS loss was to North Dakota State? Like honestly, I'd say, well, that's a better loss than losing to UAB. So it just depends. It depends on who it is. But any bad loss is going to hurt you.
Yep.
It just, what's the rest of your resume look like? I mean, Notre Dame last year had a terrible loss against Northern Illinois. They lost home to a MAC team. Still were ranked 5th. Because the overall body of work was much more impressive than that one. You should never be evaluated, in my opinion, on what you do on your best day only, and you should never be evaluated on what you do on your worst day only. Let's find the in-between and see kind of how you are.
Yep. Another one from Salty. Who is a better team currently, Duke or Clemson?
Duke. They have a better record. They just beat Clemson at Clemson. Like that's
a
very easy one. Very easy one.
Christopher Hardy, to the standard idea, does not being in a conference strip Notre Dame of the it's hard to win in the SEC line that gave Brian Kelly an out to go into excuse mode?
Brian Kelly got fired in the middle of his 4th year. He didn't have that. LSU didn't care about his it's hard to win in the SEC thing. They fired him in 3.5 years.
Nope.
So, no. I don't want Notre Dame to have built-in excuses. That's my whole point. I don't want built-in excuses. Figure it out. Go win.
Bobby S. for the part 2 from Christopher Hardy. Not saying that's bad, just curious if it allows us as fans and the media to not worry about how hard it is to win versus play to the standard.
I don't want to cover the team that way. I don't want to cover the team to where there's built-in excuses. If I was covering LSU, I'd have the same comments I do now. You're LSU. Like, you've won a title 19 with Ed Orgeron. I don't want to hear any excuses of why you can't win now. Les Miles won a title and played for another one. I don't want to hear jack from you about how hard it is to win here. Yes, it's hard to win in the SEC. So what? It's hard for Alabama to win in the SEC too. It's hard for, Auburn to win in the SEC. They won a title. I mean, look, I don't want to hear that. I don't want built-in excuses. I don't think fans should be looking for built-in excuses. If anything, if you're looking for something like that, it's how many teams have to go all over the country the way that Notre Dame does. Play teams from 4 different leagues, 5 different leagues. Nobody does that.
Yeah.
So there's things you can point to, and trust me, Brian Kelly had all those excuses when he was at Notre Dame.
Yep.
But the whole point is, you don't want excuses. Marcus Freeman, I have to this point so far, has not been an excuse maker, and I respect that about him.
From Bobby S. for the Big 12 to only get one team in, who do we want to win between Texas Tech and BYU?
BYU. But again, I don't think it matters against what. Let's keep saying this. Stop focusing on if 3 ACC teams get in, that's bad for Notre Dame. No, it isn't. That's bad for the SEC and the Big 10. That's who it's bad for. Because it means they won't get 4 and 5. What matters is who's ranked ahead of Notre Dame. That's what matters. But who has the best chance to get – I mean, Texas Tech has no chance of being ranked ahead of Notre Dame if they lose a second game. None. They're only, 2 spots ahead of them now.
Yes.
BYU, but I honestly, I don't think that matters a whole lot if BYU's undefeated in their 7th, right?
They are 7th. Texas Tech is 8th.
If they lose to Texas Tech, they're falling behind Notre Dame also. And I don't know that the Cincinnati win that's left on their schedule would change that much. Now, maybe TCU, Cincinnati, and UCF would be enough wins for them to jump back up. I think, but again, I think if TCU beats BYU this weekend, I think the loser, barring a 4-quarter back and forth down to the wire game, I think the loser falls behind Notre Dame. That doesn't mean that team's out of the playoff. It's not, because that only matters if Notre Dame's the last team in, and I don't think Notre Dame's going to be the last team in. So they would, if the season ended today, they'd be the last team in if the season ended today, right, Trev? Because you only have 3 conference champions ahead of Notre Dame. The ACE, or in the top 12, there's no ACC team and there's no G5. So right now, if the season ended today, Virginia would be the champs of the ACC, correct? They're the only undefeated team in the ACC. So they'd get in over Oklahoma, and then the G5 team would jump in, Memphis, and they'd knock Texas out. So either or. Those two would knock out Texas and Oklahoma. And there'd still be two Big 12 teams in. So it'd hurt the SEC. So it just depends on how the rest of the season plays. But in my opinion, if BYU wins, that Texas Tech will have no chance of being ranked higher than Notre Dame unless Notre Dame loses again. And if that happens, it doesn't matter. None of the other stuff matters because Notre Dame does not belong in the playoff with 3 losses.
No. Nope. Logan Patterson, would you rather Notre Dame be the 8 seed and if they won, go play Ohio State, or be the 10 seed, go on the road to play BYU, then Indiana? I think Ohio State would be a tougher game.
I think they'd both be incredibly tough games. What are your thoughts, Trev?
Yeah, I don't – I said this last playoff. I'm not trying to find this path of like least resistance to like, would I be happy if Notre Dame won a national championship regardless of who they played? Of course I would, but I don't care who Notre Dame plays. I don't. I put their talent on their best day, and hopefully that comes in the playoffs. I put that up against any team in the country. I don't care if it's in Columbus. I don't care if it's in Bloomington. I don't care if it's a neutral site. I don't care if they have to travel out to Utah to play BYU. I don't look at it like that, Logan. So I don't for the would you rather. I don't care who. As long as Notre Dame makes the playoffs, I don't care who they play. I would be lying to you if I said that I had a preference.
Yeah. Look, I think there's a pretty good chance you're going to have to play both of these teams if you want to win a title. So I don't really care what order you get them in. I don't. The only reason that my answer to this is the 8 seed. The only reason my answer is the 8 seed is because you won a home playoff game as opposed to going on the road.
Sure.
Look, guys, if you think Notre Dame's capable of winning a championship, then you shouldn't be afraid of a draw. You're going to have to beat that team at some point in time anyway. You're going to have to beat Ohio State or Bama or India. I mean, you're going to have to beat one or two of those teams anyway if you're going to win it all. I mean, last year it was like, look, you're going to have to beat Georgia and Ohio State at some point in time. So, but yeah, I'd rather have the home game. So, I got to play Ohio State in the quarters. Okay, so are you assuming that they can't beat Ohio State? So let's play them later? Like, well, okay, that if you believe that, then if you believe that they have no shot to beat Ohio State, then you want option 2. Play BYU and then play Indiana.
Well, and if you think that they have no shot to beat Ohio State, then you shouldn't want Notre Dame to make the playoffs.
Right.
Like the point of making the playoffs is to win a bowl national championship.
11-2. Right.
Like people forget that the goal of making the playoffs is to not just make the playoffs, it's to win a national championship. So if you want to do this path of least resistance, like, oh gosh, they're going to lose to Ohio State if they get this, and it's like, then you shouldn't want them to make the playoffs. Because like we just said, at some point, whether it's in the semifinals, the quarters, or the national championship, you're going to have to play Ohio State likely at some point. So again, yes, I do agree with you, Brian. 8 seed would be dope for the home game because last year that environment was nuts.
It was awesome.
But in the spirit of like, I'd rather play this team because they might be easier than this team. I could care less about that.
Yeah. So with this in mind, Trev, I mean, the only other thing I would say to that is I think it'd be better if you don't think Notre Dame can play either one of those teams, or if you think they're both going to be tough, it'd be better to play Ohio State because you're going to get more, like losing to Ohio State. It's like, well, yeah, you kind of done that already. I don't know that losing in Indiana would be a great thing for Notre Dame. So if you're looking at it from that standpoint of trying to avoid then sure. But look, dude, you're going to have to – Indiana's legit really good. But so's Notre Dame. So's Ohio State. Like, I just don't look at it that way. Give me whoever. But the only reason I want the home playoff game is because for us, selfishly, it's a cool environment, and it is winter. It is easier to win at home than it is to win on the road. Doesn't mean you can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My M10s, do you prefer to go right after Navy or go side to side a little bit?
Offensively, both. I mean, you've got to do both. My number one thing is to go right at them, but if they're going to play defense the same way Boston College did, then you need to have some answers to get beat them on the outside. So it's a little bit of both.
Andrew Gilmore, has Navy's coach ever retried that all-out blitz scheme again? The one he did against Reese, or was that a one-off?
It's a one-off. I think they know that. I think you benefited from it. They only did it for a half.
Yeah.
If the roles would have been reversed and they would have done that in the first half, and then you let Tommy and Harry go into halftime and make adjustments, they'd have got shredded in the second half of that game. Because it was unsound. It just Notre Dame wasn't able to really do anything with it. And they were open guys. Drew just missed them. Yeah. If you try that against CJ, I don't know that that's going to go as well for you.
From Doug Nimke. Brian, assuming the USC game goes away, what are your thoughts on playing Navy the last game of the year?
What are your thoughts on that, Trev?
I guess from a scheduling standpoint, I'm relatively impartial. Navy was one of the games that they kind of play all over the place. Like they played them to start the year. They played them to start the year not in the country. You know, they've played them in October. They've played them in, literally. So it's like, I think it would be cool. I don't love the idea of the final team they play in the regular season before the playoffs is a triple option team. I don't love that. Not from a resume standpoint. It's not because I don't respect Navy as opponent. It's just from a football aspect. I don't love the idea of playing Navy, having a month off, and then potentially playing IU.
I kind of like it though, because it does allow you to kind of rest and heal.
Sure.
And you're going to have a lot of extra time to kind of get back to playing your basic stuff. I've always felt if you're going to play Navy, it's always great to not have a game that next week to recalibrate.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from, Trev. Just from experience, I think that an extra week of practice allows you to, because you're talking about being able to recalibrate, right? I mean, totally get that. Very fair thing to say. I just think when you have that extra time, it's much easier to recalibrate than it is because your concern is valid. But I think the healing process, the extra practice time, because you're going to get some, downtime, some practice time to recalibrate stuff. You can kind of get that back on track. That's why I've always liked bye weeks after.
Yeah. No, that's totally fair. I mean, if Notre Dame makes the playoffs this year, with all due respect to Stanford, I don't know if they're going to be able to do much to also prepare Notre Dame for a playoff game.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, they're not. It's at all. For me, it's really just about rest and healing. You're going to have to play them anyway, so give yourself time to heal and rest and recalibrate. Yeah. I'm not opposed to that. I'm really not. I would rather it be USC at the end of the year every year. That's what I'd rather it be. It's like Thanksgiving every other year is not going to be the same without that USC trip. But I can live with that. I'm also not opposed to doing it at the beginning of the year.
Or Navy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, definitely not. You're like, dude, you've changed your tune a little bit.
I was like,
no. Dude, I heard you screaming like 2 weeks ago about playing. No, I meant Navy. I wouldn't have a problem playing Navy at the beginning of the year.
I wouldn't either. I like that, actually. I would prefer if you told me that I had to choose between one or the other, I would prefer it to be at the start of the year.
Agree. From Jay-Z, did you guys see the article from SI from Pat 40 about how Notre Dame is way overrated and Louisville should be in their spot? Jay-Z, I would just encourage you to do what I do. And if you see Pat 40 on the author line, just pass on by. Like pass on by.
I've seen all of it. I mean, people were up in arms about Notre Dame hosting last year because they lost to Northern Illinois and they played for a national championship.
All right.
I
pass on by.
Yep.
Slater. Anthony Hamilton song, Pass Me Over. Just pass me over. I can miss all that. I don't need all that. It's not a serious argument. So that's kind of who Pat 40 has become. Hold on a second. That's not what I meant to pull up. I meant to pull up this one.
From Bobby S. Who gets in at 10-2, Notre Dame or a 9-3 Texas with a Texas A&M win?
10-2 Notre Dame. I mean, let's think about this for a second, Bobby S. Notre Dame's ahead of Texas now with identical records. A loss is not going to drop them so close down that then a win over A&M bumps them up. It just that's not how it works. If they have a worse record than Notre Dame, and they're already behind Notre Dame actually they have a better record than Notre Dame because they're 7-2. Correct? Isn't Texas 7-2? They've played one more game than Notre Dame, or am I?
Yeah, they're 7-2.
Okay. They're not going to jump ahead of Notre Dame if they lose another game. They won't be close enough to Notre Dame.
No, Bobby, you can't look at it from just like you fast forward to the end of the year. You have to look at it how the rankings would play out. So if they were to be, they would go into the Texas A&M game 8-3, which means they lose to one of Georgia or Arkansas. Even if they lose a close game to Georgia, they still drop. I don't think it'll be a lot, but they still drop. There's not, unless they lose to Georgia by 1 point in quadruple overtime,
sure,
and then beat Texas A&M by 40.
Right.
That's the only scenario that I see.
And Notre Dame sputters down the stretch with a bunch of ugly wins.
Yeah. Notre Dame plays every game like the Boston College game.
They beat that team. We lost to that team, so they're going to rank it. Notre Dame literally beat Miami. They have the same record, and Notre Dame's ranked. Miami beat Notre Dame. So not only we beat you, they beat you, blah, blah, blah. We played each other. They beat Notre Dame, and Notre Dame still ranked ahead of them. So what makes you think that Texas, who's already ranked behind Notre Dame, like, I think your argument would make more sense, Bobby, is if, like, let's say Texas was ranked 7th and Notre Dame was 10th. Because then in Trevor's scenario, maybe that loss to Georgia drops them one spot below Notre Dame, but then that win over A&M drops them a spot ahead of Notre Dame, but they're already behind them. So, no, yeah.
From Tristan, 1776, I'm going to start with that. I'm not kissing your behind, Brian, but if Notre Dame offered you a coaching position, not head coach, would you take it?
No. And he said I'm qualified for it. I have not coached football in over 10 years. I'm not qualified to go coach football right now. I can analyze football. I can talk football. I can do this job, in my opinion, as well as anybody. But there are far more coaches who are more qualified to be a position coach at Notre Dame than I am. So I appreciate your confidence in me, but no, I would not take it. Plus, part of what I love about this job is, for people who don't know, I own Irish Breakdown. I run Irish Breakdown. I have no boss other than God, and he's always my boss. So I don't know how much I would like having to work for somebody again, to be completely honest with you. So there's a lot of great things about coaching, but you know what is nice about this? When I stop this show, I can walk upstairs and go talk to my wife. Be home, go talk to my girls. I can do work from my office or my couch or wherever. I would not be home at all, like hardly at all, if I was still coaching again. So I appreciate all that, but no, I would not take that job because there'd be more qualified people for it. Now, like if a coach at Notre Dame said, "Hey, Brian, you want to come in this summer and we want to pick your brain and talk," I'd do that. But I have no interest in working for Notre Dame. I've not applied for a job at Notre Dame. I don't have any intention of applying for a job at Notre Dame. I've never asked anyone to put a good word in for me at Notre Dame. I'm comfortable with where I am. I like where I am, and I like what I do. Plus, I'd miss all you guys. So I appreciate that, but I'm good.
From Salty, who is the better team currently, Miami or SMU?
Miami.
Yeah.
I mean, SMU was the better team on Saturday. But the entirety of the season, Miami's still a better team than SMU.
Yeah.
It's like Miami was a better team than Notre Dame on August 31st. But 8 games in, are they a better team with the entirety of their schedule? No, they're not. Florida was a better team than Texas a month ago. They're not a better team than Texas in the entirety of the season.
Florida State was a better team than Alabama on the 31st.
Significantly better, 100%. Like, that wasn't a fluky game, Trev. That was a butt whooping.
Mm-hmm. Sure was. From Salty Virginia Peanuts, how much has the Signetti demonstration joke to top 3 team in less than 2 seasons shortened the time for firing for newly hired coaches at high expectation schools?
I don't know the answer to that for sure, but I have to think that hurts. Like if you're at LSU and you're Brian Kelly, like, dude, we're in year 4. We're so like, hold on a second. I just watched Kurt Cignetti turn Indiana around in a year. You know, like, hold on. Well, but they didn't play anybody. Yeah, they were still far more competitive against Notre Dame and Ohio State than you were against Texas A&M and Alabama and all. You know what I'm saying? Like in year 3 and 4. Like, so you can miss me with all that.
It's also because of who he brought in with him. It's not like he had this big turnaround and then his entire transfer portal class was full. He didn't get Riley Leonard and Caleb Downs and like all these guys that hit the portal that were big names. He did it with guys from Old Dominion. And
I said
James
last year
Madison.
they were a G5 All-Star team.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean that as an insult. That's a great point, Trevor. He didn't go out and buy the players that LSU bought. LSU won the offseason. Well, they lost the in-season. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just not how you win. Like, he went out and got a bunch of kids who know how to play, who knew what they were doing.
Coachable.
He didn't go out and, they didn't go out and buy a team. He said, we're going to get kids that are going to buy into what we're doing here. Same thing this year. They went and got a quarterback from Cal. Like, I think I was watching a game there. Is one of their transfers. Who was I watching the other day? Team that's turned things around. They had like a D3 kid at running back. I'm trying to remember, D2 kid at running back. I'm trying to remember who it was. But it's just like, you're just like watching. It might have been Indiana. Not at running back. They had somebody, but like they're not going out and getting the guy he got from Notre Dame. Yeah, he got a big player from Notre Dame, but the guy was not going to start for Notre Dame. And Pat Coogan. Now you look back and be like, gee, I think that might maybe not have been a wise choice, but I'm not going to give Joe Rudolph a hard time for it because I would have not advocated for keeping Pat Coogan as a starter at the time. I try not to criticize coaches for when things don't go right when it was something that I also believed in at the time. I think that's Bush League. So I'm not going to criticize Joe Rudolph. I can't believe you let Pat Coogan go. They would have liked Pat Coogan to come back, but he just wasn't going to start. They would have liked Rocco Spindler to come back. He just wasn't going to start. You might be a little bit better team right now after the injuries, but you can't assume that. You needed to be honest with those kids. They were, and those kids went somewhere else, and it's working out great for them. But Notre Dame's going to be fine. Sullivan Absher's a good football player too. So, I think Kurt Cignetti, what he did at Indiana, has made life a lot harder for a lot of these other coaches who aren't winning at big-time schools. How slow of a rebuild are they going to be okay with at Florida? That's why I'm like, Lane Kiffin, dude, just stay where you are. You've already done all that work. Don't, you know what I mean? Just stay where you are, bro. Keep collecting that $9-10 million paycheck and just live life happy.
From PK, is it Notre Dame's plan to redshirt James Flanagan? How many remaining games can he still play in and get his red shirt? Could he then be ready to contribute in the playoffs? Number 7 brings virtually nothing.
I strongly disagree with that. I think if you go watch the touchdown run that Notre Dame had against Boston College, you will see that he absolutely contributed something then. We had a very key block on that play. So, look, he's only caught, 3 passes all year, Trev? I think they've only thrown to him 3 times.
All in the Purdue game.
Right. They don't throw to him. Ty Washington's not a game changer, but he's not what you're saying either. He brings a lot to the table in regard to he's inconsistent. He's got it, but so's a lot of guys on this offensive football team. He's also had some very, very important plays. He was great against Arkansas, and he had a very important block on the game-breaking touchdown run against Boston College. So now to answer the other part of your question, James Flanagan has now played in, I believe, 2 games so far. Let me find it real quick.
Yeah, it's 2. He played against Arkansas and then Boston College.
Okay, yeah. So he can play in 2 more games. So let's say he plays this weekend against Navy, then he can only play in 1 of the final 3 games if he's going to redshirt. My understanding is they plan on redshirting him, yes. But here's the thing: if you redshirt, you can play in every single playoff. You could play every single snap in the playoffs, and you're not losing your redshirt, which I actually kind of like. I think that was a smart decision. It's one of the few smart decisions they do because depth is an issue for teams, and if you can still get more kids healthy for the postseason, but then not blow their red shirts, I think that's good for the players and good for the program.
Andre Tonsel, why are so many people worried about Notre Dame being ranked 10th?
They hate us because they ain't us, brother. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, notice that everybody's mad about one team. Nobody's complaining about like Virginia, Louisville, Miami. None of them are complaining about Utah. How's Utah ahead of us? You don't hear a peep. Ari Wasserman's losing his mind because Notre Dame's ahead of Miami. I haven't seen a word from him about Utah being ahead of Miami. Not a peep.
Yep. I mean, his whole argument is, why is Notre Dame ranked ahead of Texas and Oklahoma? Why is Oregon ranked ahead of Texas and Oklahoma?
Exactly. Right. It's because A, Notre Dame sells, and B, for everybody else, they hate us because they ain't us. For an irrelevant, we always like to get told, oh, you're an irrelevant program. Oh, okay. Well, for an irrelevant program, you guys sure do talk about us a lot. You know, I talk about a lot about Indiana now. I didn't talk about them 2 years ago. Why? Because they didn't matter. Facts. They do now. Signetti's done a great job there.
Yep.
You know, you don't hear me sitting there every day talking about, man, boy, let's talk about Kent State football for a little bit, man. I think it's a big deal. I can't believe that Kent State's ranked 107th. They should not be ranked that high. You know, I mean, because nobody cares. I didn't have a peep to say about Oklahoma until today. I mean, other than previewing games, I didn't talk about Michigan until today, and just because of all the, you know, some of the nonsense you see. But why is it that everybody's talking about Notre Dame? Because jealousy, bro. That's what it comes to me. And there's some people that are like genuinely like, dude, that guy's going to need therapy with how angry this guy is. This is one guy on Twitter. I didn't know who he's a fan of. Like, this guy needs counseling. Like, you are very angry and upset about that. A lot of other people are just ignorant. And let's be honest too, Andre, a lot of this is groupthink. Like I've seen a couple, you know, reporters. Well, you know, let's all jump on the Texas should be ranked ahead of Notre Dame bandwagon, but like not one of them can make anything other than, well, they've got 2 top 25 wins and Notre Dame only has 1. Okay. And that's not the only part of the resume. You know what I mean? Like, they also have a loss to a 3-5 team. Why do you keep not talking about that? Notre Dame lost to number 3 A&M and a team that you think should be ranked in the top 10. So why should Notre Dame be ranked behind Texas? Because they beat Vanderbilt? Come on, bro. So it's just simple, bro. They hate us because they ain't us. It really comes down to that. There's jealousy. And for some people, it's I don't think Ari Wasserman's losing his absolute mind because he's doing it for clicks. I mean, there's an element to that, sure. But I think he genuinely believes that. I think he's genuinely wrong. I think Pat Forty's probably doing it for clicks because he sees how everybody else is reacting, and so he wants to have a say in it. But he can't just talk about Texas and Oklahoma or Miami because everybody else is talking about that. So let's do something outside the box and go Louisville. That'll get some clicks. Whatever.
Another one from Andrea Tonsel. Do you believe teams should be docked for playing FCS teams? Do you think teams should be required to play at least 11 P4 or G6 games?
Yeah, they should. I mean, I think that's the rule. I don't think, like, for bowl eligibility, you can't play multiple. You can't have 2 wins over FCS teams and be 6-6 and be bowl eligible. So
again, this goes back to who it is. It's
right.
There are a lot of people in college football. You see it with the big conferences. Like, it's like everybody should have to play 9 conference games. It's like, but not all conferences are created equally. Everybody just wants one big standard, and it's just not the same. Right. This year, if Georgia wanted to play an FCS team, I don't care. I don't. But if Ohio State with their schedule, or like IU with their schedule, also wanted to play an FCS team, I don't know if I'd be down with that. Like, it's just not everything is created equal, Andre. That's my answer for that. There's not one big standard that you can have across college football because it's not going to be equivalent.
Well, because people trying to compare the NFL, and it's irrelevant. The NFL is a league of 32 teams. Even if you just look at the Power 4 level only and not even look at it from a standpoint of like all 130 plus teams, there's like 65 to 70 teams, depending on who you would bring in or leave out if you form some super league. There's so much varying levels of goodness in the more teams you have. That's why expansion has hurt certain leagues. Now that there's more teams, there's more players in the league who wouldn't have been in the league before expansion, meaning the overall quality has been spread out and watered down a little bit. So those are things I look at, and you know, I like, Andre, here's another thing too, right? So if you played Akron in your non-conference and I played North Dakota State in my non-conference, I'd say that my non-conference was tougher than your non-conference. Back when James Madison was in the FCS level and they were playing for championships every year, I would say that my game against James Madison was a tougher game than your game against Sam Houston State, who's now an FBS team, or USC playing Missouri State, something like that. It just depends on who the opponent is. So, I mean, there's North Dakota State, I would say, is tougher than a lot of MAC teams, for example. And so that's kind of why I look at that the way that I do. It just depends. I don't think teams should be docked overall. I think what you should do is you should not count it. Like, you know, I've always said, look, I'd have an aggregate of the most recent 3 seasons in the FCS level. And if you play a team that's been ranked in the top 25 in the aggregate over the last 3 years, then I'll give you credit for that win. If you don't, then I'm just not counting it. So we're 11-1. No, you're 10-1 because you played Savannah State, who's terrible FCS team. But if you're saying, well, yeah, we went 11-1 and one of our wins is over North Dakota State, okay, I'll give you credit for that because in an aggregate over the last 3 years, they've been a top 25 team. That's going to be a tougher game than someone playing Akron. I think North Dakota State would destroy Akron. I think North Dakota State, if they were a Division I team right now, probably is bowl eligible, if not better. I mean, look what JMU did in their first year at the FCS level or FBS level. They went like 8-3, and in year 2, they went 11-1. So if North Dakota State joined the MAC right now, I think they win the MAC. Probably comfortably, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's what I believe.
Robert Bishop. So now that we've seen ranked number 10, is there any scenario that if we win out, we drop any lower or get left out of the playoffs?
There's very unlikely scenarios that are honestly, Robert, not even worth discussing beyond what Trev mentioned earlier. It's highly unlikely. It would have to involve Notre Dame not playing well in their next 3-4 games. Like if they need overtime to beat Navy and beat Pitt with a walk-off field goal and then have a sluggish 24-20 win over Syracuse and then, beat Stanford 31-24 and Texas runs the table. Oklahoma runs the table. BYU and Texas Tech play to a barn burner of a finish and Texas Tech wins on a walk-off field goal and then BYU goes out there and just destroys TCU in their next game. Then sure, there's some scenarios, but the odds of all those things happening to leave Notre Dame out are slim. I think right now, the only thing that you need to focus on is Notre Dame playing their game, winning out. They're in a good place. The question now is not, are they in? Like, honestly, I think if you didn't have Twitter and you didn't get on the message board and all you did was jump on our show last night and talk and hear what we said and be in the show today, not paying attention to the chat, I don't think you'd be worried about Notre Dame not getting in. I think the conversation you'd want to be having right now is, okay, what do they got to do to host? I got a buddy of mine who called me. He's like, man, you were right about the playoff. He said, are you surprised? I said, dude, I told you for weeks if Notre Dame wins out, they'll be 10th. What made you think that? I said, because I pay attention to what the committee has done the last 10 years, not what these clowns on Twitter are saying. Like, that's why. Because we care about giving you honest analysis, not pro Notre Dame spin. Because if we were trying to give you pro Notre Dame spin, we'd be losing our minds about why Notre Dame's not ranked ahead of Oregon. We stated our case of why we thought Notre Dame should be ranked ahead of Oregon and said, but it doesn't matter. Because if Oregon goes out and runs a table, they should be ranked ahead of Notre Dame. And if they don't run the table, then Notre Dame's going to be ranked ahead of them anyway. So at the end of the day, here's my case, but I'm also okay with it. I think you can make a case for Notre Dame being ahead of Texas Tech and BYU. I'll listen to it. I may disagree with you, but I'll listen to it. And I could give you some, yeah, but if they had Notre Dame's schedule, they would, okay, I could say that, I could spin that, but it doesn't make it a good argument. But like at the end of the day, if we wanted to spin it, we could be sitting there losing our minds because that rage sells. I mean, that's absolutely what rage sells. I can't believe Notre Dame's not ahead of these teams. And we could just sit there and yell at the committee and the committee sucks and all that kind of stuff. But that's not an honest take. In our opinion. Now, someone else could give you an honest take as to why Notre Dame should be 7th. And I'm like, okay, I get where you're coming from, eye test and this and that. And if they were on a neutral field, they'd be ranked ahead of, they'd be favored to beat Texas Tech and probably Oregon and BYU on a neutral field. But I hate that when people use that against Notre Dame, so I'm not going to use that for Notre Dame now. So we're going to give you an honest opinion. But I think right now the conversation is Notre Dame is Notre Dame going to be in if they win out? And in my opinion, the answer is yes. So, yeah. So, Trev, that's going to wrap up our mailbag, folks. We're just going to kind of go over one thing here real quick before we get done with that. But great questions today. Really appreciate all y'all's questions, and we got a ton of them in there. But before I get to the final subjects, I want to just thank y'all for being with us today. No show tonight. No IB Nation Sports Talk tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. Trevor and I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to have so much fun talking football tomorrow at 1 o'clock, Trev. We're going to obviously do our prediction show for Notre Dame. We're going to talk about kind of the weekend for Notre Dame, the rooting guide for Notre Dame. And then, of course, we'll dive into the games that are going to have the biggest impact on the college football playoffs, or biggest games of the weekend to watch in college football. So that'll be our 3 segments. So definitely check that out. And, of course, as always, the best way to see what we're doing and be a part of the content. And I've got multiple video breakdowns out this week. I think there've been some pretty good breakdowns this week, Trev. But that's for premium members only at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So before we go, Trev, I did want to kind of more officially discuss the news that broke today. And that is that Notre Dame and Auburn have agreed to a 2-year series, which will take place in 2027 and 2028. So according to the what has been released today, Notre Dame will host Auburn on September 25th of 2027. That will be the first matchup between these two schools. And that game will be the week after Notre Dame plays Michigan State and the week before they play Georgia Tech. Those 2 games in 2027 have already been scheduled. The return game in 2028 will be on October 28th. So apparently the SEC has no problem with their teams scheduling games and non-conference games in October. Shocker. There's one thing I'll give the SEC credit for. By and large, their teams are not afraid to go play good competition out of conference. Not everybody. But Auburn has always been a program willing to play tough teams. Remember, they went out and played Pete and USC back when USC was a powerhouse. So I'll give them credit for that. So the 2028 game, where Notre Dame goes to Auburn, will be on October 28th of 2028. And so for Notre Dame, that game will be the week before Notre Dame plays at Virginia Tech. And then the next week they're home against Clemson. So that'll be an interesting stretch there for the Irish to get down and play at Auburn. So, Trev, I just want to, not our own, I kind of shared some opinions. So I just want to kind of briefly go over just our thoughts on this. I think it's good that Notre Dame is scheduling more SEC teams. I don't think it's a coincidence that Notre Dame has scheduled more SEC teams lately than Big Ten teams. There's some Big Ten teams on the schedule. I think there's this assumption that the Big Ten feels that eventually they're going to be able to corner Notre Dame into playing the Big Ten. I think there's some strategery here with the Notre Dame to say, hey, we have no problem playing SEC teams. We have no problem doing that at all. So I just think there's a smart move. I don't know how much this game moves the needle for me overall. If you beat them, you're supposed to. If you don't beat them, unless there's those random years where Auburn happens to be really, really good, then perhaps it could help you out a little bit. But what will Auburn be in 27 and 28, Trev? We have no idea. They just fired their coach. We're going to have to find out who their coach is. We don't know. But I will say, even though I don't have a strong opinion about playing Auburn one way or the other, I do like the fact that they are trying to say we want more SEC and more Southern teams on our schedule. You think about the floor, the after 28, I think 29 and 30, they play Alabama. I think it's 31 and 32, they play Florida. They have on their schedule. Arkansas is going to be on the schedule in 2027. You've got Texas on the schedule, I think, in, was it 28, 29? You've got a 12-year deal with Clemson. Notre Dame is making it very clear we want to go south for games. And I think that is good for them in a lot of ways. It brings exposure to the program down there. I also think it lets the Big Ten know that if you guys think we're just going to sit back and somehow if the ACC folds, we're screwed, you got another thing coming. We got plenty of people that want to play us. Pete Bavacqua said it. If USC doesn't want to play us, we have plenty of teams that are willing to play us. Exhibit A right here. Because what people could say is, well, yeah, but some of those teams may want to get out of those games now that their SEC is going to go to a 9-team league. Well, Auburn already knows they're going to a 9-game league, 9-game schedule, and they just scheduled Notre Dame. So I think that speaks volumes about Auburn. I think it also says a lot about Notre Dame and the desire to play down south. Just quick thoughts, Trev, before we get out of here about this Auburn-Notre Dame schedule.
Yeah, I love what Pete Bavacqua and the rest of the athletic department are doing with Notre Dame's football team too, because a lot of this comes down to perception. Like we had a lot of conversation in the offseason about the perception around Notre Dame's team. And as much as we value playing teams like an NC State that have 2 big ranked wins this year, saying that you beat a 5-4 NC State team doesn't do the same as saying you beat a 5-4 SEC Auburn team inside of Jordan-Hare. It just doesn't. I'm not saying that I agree with it. That's just the facts. And that's unfortunately how the media perceives wins like that. But where I respect Notre Dame for scheduling Auburn is because Notre Dame easily could be like, dude, we're playing the SEC. Who do you got? Oh, Kentucky. It's like,
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
It's like that. Same thing with Notre Dame. Dude, we're going to play 4 Big Ten teams this year. Who you got? Rutgers, Northwestern, Maryland, and Purdue.
Right.
What up, Big Ten? Like, so
yeah. I dominated the Big Ten this year.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Like the years when the Brian Kelly times, like we ran through the ACC. It's like, yeah, I mean, Wake Forest and,
you didn't play Clemson
or Miami or Florida State or
when they're good.
Right. Yeah. So from a perception standpoint, I like it. And then, like I said, like you said, we gave our opinions earlier, more from a fan perspective, but I like the perception that this gives Notre Dame of, I mean, in 1 year in 2028, you're playing regardless of how, barring them just being putrid, you get Texas, Arkansas, Auburn, Virginia Tech, Clemson, Miami, Pitt.
Yep.
What are people in the committee going to say at that point if Notre Dame is, 10-2 going into the postseason? Like, well, they didn't play Alabama and Ohio State and all, like,
right.
Those people will always be there. But I love adding an opponent like Auburn to the schedule for a perception.
Like, in some ways, it's a lose-lose for Notre Dame. You're expected to beat Auburn. But if Auburn has one of those years where they're a top 10 team and you beat them, you will get credit for it. I mean, you will. It just – if they're not ranked, it's kind of like, well, you better beat them because it's, who cares? It's kind of like beating Arkansas this year. Notre Dame gets no credit for the fact that they destroyed Arkansas this year because they're just not good. So, but at the end of the day, there's a greater odds that that's a big win over Auburn than it is Arkansas because there's just more years where Auburn is good. We'll know more about that here in the next year or two, but first we got to find out who their coach is going to be. Once we get that answer, then we can start to evaluate what kind of game this might be for Notre Dame. But yeah, I like it, Trev. I like the strategy. I don't have a strong opinion about playing Auburn, as I mentioned earlier. But I like the idea of playing more SEC games. That's why I like the idea of scheduling a 12-season schedule against Clemson. I don't want to be stuck being a regional program, and this is the whole point that we've been making for a while now about Notre Dame, that people that think that Notre Dame is just going to join the Big Ten and become this regional program don't know Notre Dame. And yeah, that's just kind of what I think. And I'll also say a lot of respect for the SEC.
Oh, yeah.
Because their top teams have not been afraid of scheduling Notre Dame. When Alabama scheduled Notre Dame, it wasn't in 2016 when they sucked. It was during the time when Notre Dame was a pretty good program. Auburn is scheduling Notre Dame right now where Notre Dame is arguably a top 5 program. Texas A&M was not afraid to play Notre Dame. Florida is not afraid to play Notre Dame. Kudos to them. And right now, the only Big Ten team that I know of that's willing to do that at the top of the board is Ohio State.
Yeah.
The rest of the Big Ten teams are purposely scheduling soft non-conference games. There's only one program that's willing to say we'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime, and that's Ohio State, because they will schedule tough out of kind. There's every now and then you just get those weird scheduling conflicts where you just can't get that game. But by and large, Ohio State has Texas coming up again.
Yeah. I would say Ohio State and Michigan the last couple years. They played Texas out of conference last year and then Oklahoma down in Norman this year.
Those were scheduled before. I think they're kind of moving away from that in future years a little bit. But Michigan used to be that way. They would play Notre Dame every year, and then they'd go play a good Pac-12 team as well. But yes, to your point, Penn State's never really been that way. Every now and then they'll have a good game, but by and large, they're not.
Yeah.
So,
one of the last thing that I'll say on this too, this is, I could be far off on this. This is just how I'm reading this. I think Notre Dame is planting the seeds to eventually try to move away from the ACC. That's just me. Like, you wanted the Clemson game not a part of that series, like a part of your ACC deal. You're putting more effort into playing more Big Ten and SEC teams. I think that they're putting themselves in a position to where if they move away from the ACC, they don't have just this 5-game gap in their schedule.
Here's what I think. I think you're onto something, but I would tweak it a little bit. I think they're protecting themselves in case the ACC goes away. More so than moving away. I don't know that Notre Dame has any intention. I literally don't know. This isn't I doubt that Notre Dame is going to want to do this. This is literally, I do not know if Notre Dame's going to want to re-up with the ACC when the contract expires. What's it, 2035?
Yeah, I think so.
And something would get done in the year or two before that. I don't know that Notre Dame would want to do that, but right now, that's the furthest thing from your mind, because right now, you don't know that the ACC is even going to survive till then. What these deals do, Clemson, other, what that does is that allows you to guarantee that if the league goes away, we'll have a plan. Because if the ACC went away, the first thing you'd see Notre Dame do is they'd try to get at least 2 of the Carolina schools into long-term deals. You'd see them probably go to try to get UVA or somebody like that. Like Pitt, I promise you, if the ACC went away, Pitt and Notre Dame would sign a long-term deal. I promise you, but I'd be shocked if they didn't. So that's kind of where I'm at, because a lot of those teams are going to need Notre Dame for validation, as they try to find leagues. Because when the ACC dies, if it dies, it'll be because 4 or 5 schools just bounce. Those other schools aren't going to necessarily have immediate landing spots. So they're going to need to protect themselves, and one way to do that is let's get Notre Dame on the schedule. And then Notre Dame will gladly go do that with those teams because that's how they fill their schedule. But I think what this does, Trev, is this says, okay, we're going to get good games on our schedule at the top, and then it's a lot easier to fill out the bottom.
Yeah.
But if you got a weak schedule and then now you've got to try to find 4 good games, it's going to be a lot harder to do. Get Texas on the schedule, get Clemson on the schedule, get Auburn on the schedule, and you figure the rest. You got you got Navy, then you figure the rest out. And so I think it's more protecting themselves. I think you and I are on thinking the similar thing, but I think it's more so than moving away from the ACC. I think it's more about protecting themselves. And then as we get closer to 2035, then you'll start to see them, if they don't want to sign, then you start to see them moving away from the ACC.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. I think it also gives them more bargaining power towards the end of it too. It's like, hey, look, we got Auburn playing us, Florida, Michigan, all these other
We've already signed Clemson. We could go sign right now. We could go sign Pitt, BC, Syracuse, and Duke to 10-year deals right now.
Yep.
So agree with you completely.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Like Brian said, there's going to be no IB Nation Sports Beat tonight. So the next time you'll see us on the Irish Breakdown Podcast will be tomorrow when we go through game predictions, game records, and the rest of the show is just 2 guys talking ball, the rest of the slate of college football, which would be really, really exciting. And then remember to also subscribe to the CFP Nation channel. Bill Bender and Bill Trocchi are going to go live tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. Eastern time, I'll be going live with Jesse Stiers for this week's edition of the Spread Option. So on your way out of here, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, whatever streaming platform you listen to us on. We would greatly, greatly appreciate a 5-star review. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message board at boards@irishbreakdown.com. So until tomorrow, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.